could meet me down, we have a resolution to give out. Before we start, it's always good to recognize one of our own Belmar residents. This gentleman was recognized by the Asbury Park Press, and they had a little video for him. So we're going to show that now, if everything works.
If you've ever walked into a big box home improvement store and needed a little help, Kevin Woolley is your guy. In a time where good customer service is hard to find, Kevin is not. It's what he lives for. Thank you. Have a good day, too, bro. I appreciate your help. Eight hours a day, 5 days a week, he patrols the hardware aisles at the Home Depot store, number 949, in Neptune, New Jersey.
I do have customers that come back and ask to be welcome. That makes me feel good. Have a good day, guys.
Cerebral palsy has staggered his stride and slurred his speech, but don't tell him that. You ever feel sorry for yourself?
No way.
Why not?
It doesn't do any good. You gotta get out there and do what you have to do.
And he'll walk the extra mile for his customers.
Yeah.
According to the Walking Behavior Laboratory in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the typical American takes 5,900 steps per day.
Hey,
Kevin takes 10,000. This year, he'll be celebrating his 20th year with the company and rarely misses a day.
It's a good company to work for. They take care of you.
So the next time you're struggling to get out of bed and go to work in the morning, think about Kevin.
Go out there and do the best you can.
In Neptune, New Jersey, Brian Johnston for the Asbury Park Press and APP.com.
Okay, I'd like you to all meet Kevin Woolley. Come on out, Kevin. Now, show of hands. Has anyone used Kevin's help at the Home Depot? All right, look at that. Okay, terrific. Told you I was going to tease you today, right? Okay, this is a resolution by the Borough of Belmar honoring Kevin Woolley. Whereas Kevin Woolley is a valued member of the Belmar community, and whereas Kevin Woolley has been a dedicated employee of Home Depot in neighboring Neptune Township for over 22 years, and whereas Kevin Woolley was recently honored as Person of the Year by the Monmouth County Foundation for Children, and whereas Kevin Woolley in his dedication and work ethic sets an example to which we all should aspire at. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and council of the Borough of Belmar congratulate Kevin Woolley on his recent award of Person of the Year by the Monmouth Ocean Foundation for Children. Be it further resolved that the Borough of Belmar hereby recognizes Kevin Woolley for his exemplary and honorable service. We are proud to have you as a resident of our town. As I mentioned there, Kevin was our own summer employee, and he used to work the beach as a beach cleaner for many years. And he wouldn't tell where the other workers were hiding, you know. Kevin was always working, but he knew where his buddies were there, but he never told on them. Kevin, you want to say anything? No? You're welcome. Here you go, and you don't have to stay.
We got a photo of all of you?
Oh, sure.
Very nice. Okay, so, no? How long is it? Good job. Couple slides, okay, no problem.
Okay, workshop. Last meeting, the council talked about a little bit about bikes in Belmar. So I reached out to New Jersey Bike Share, and they're going to come and give us a little presentation of their business with bikes. I think they are in Point Pleasant Beach this year. They won't be in Belmar this summer, but they look to possibly be in the other shore towns maybe next year. So Fred Brody, you want to come to the microphone and introduce your people and give us your, talk to the council, and we'll see what you have to say.
All right, yeah, well, first, thank you very much. We appreciate this opportunity. As the mayor said, that we did have a meeting in May with a few of the towns in the area here. We held it in the Bradley Beach Borough Hall, and we talked about the bike share program. And as the mayor also said, that the bike share program will be starting in Point Pleasant Beach. So the vision is to hopefully have it, in the towns that connect us around here in Monmouth County. We've gotten the support already from their freeholder director, Arnone, his encouragement, I should say. I used to chair the Monmouth County Transportation Council. I chaired that for 15 years up until 2016, I believe. So familiar with the county and the freeholders. So it was nice to get Tom's encouragement to try to have these presentations. So I'm going to turn it over. John Kelly is Director of Business Development, and Vince Rodia is in charge of operations. So there's going to be a short presentation, and then hopefully we want to devote more time to questions and answers.
Okay,
Thank you.
gentlemen. I just want to warn everybody, if you suddenly see me fall over backwards, it's because this chair doesn't have much support. Okay? So, don't worry, I won't get hurt. But I'm holding on right here. Jen didn't push me over. Okay, gentlemen, sorry.
We can do, there's some slides, but I think if you either want to come down.
Yeah, we'll come
Yeah.
down. Yes.
So
everyone else
just so I don't blind you. Drop
So with bike share, we look at this as a positive amenity for the towns and the many cities and boroughs that we work with. So we look at it as a piece of the local mobility fabric. So instead of getting around by car or train or bus or a cab system, you're getting around on a bike, which is less impactful on your roads. So it's about 1/40,000th of the wear and tear that a car would do on your local roads, as well as reducing traffic congestion and pollution in the local area. So we also look at this as a part of your public transit solution. So it's about creating a public way that is equitable and socially impactful for your constituents and your visitors to get around the borough. So just to run through some of our projects already, we're very concentrated in Hudson County. So we just rebranded that system from Hudson Bike Share, where it will stay that way, but overarching, it's now Jersey Bike, to help everyone realize that this isn't just for Hudson County, it's for more of New Jersey. So you have one membership that brings you all around New Jersey. So if I'm from Hoboken and I take the train down here, I can still use my Bike Share membership to get around. So just a quick overview of what Bike Share is. It's like I said, it's a transportation solution. So we are creating stations that are stocked with bikes so that people can get around more easily. They're in predictable areas like train stations, economic hubs, where people live, and the beaches, so that people can get around more easily and impactfully. So the benefits, as I said, you're going to be a little bit safer, your roads are going to be a little bit better. So when you're not in a car, people are a little bit more aware of how they're getting around the area. So if you're on a bike, you're going to be a little bit more aware of cars, and since more people are on bikes, we're reducing the number of cars on the street. So that's safer for people who are walking as well. Also, as I touched on, the local environment, so you're having less cars on the road, less pollution, and people are getting a little bit healthy as they're expending more energy and using more fit ways to get around the city. So giving people jobs, giving them access to education and amenities and things like that, as well as a 24/7 solution that doesn't need people running it all the time, and people can get around whenever they need to. So far we're at 860 bikes, 75 stations in 8 cities, all under one membership. Bayonne, Hoboken, most of Hudson County, as well as Woodbridge. So we've recently hit about 415,000 rides with 25,000 members, and this year we'll be going to Woodbridge and Point Pleasant Beach, which is nearby to Belmar, so people will be able to easily get around Belmar and Point Pleasant on one single membership. So some highlights: zero cost, nothing for you to pay for. We're all privately funding this. Smart bike technology, use your phone or a key card to access. So we can, the technology will be flexible, so it's easy to expand. We start off with a number we think is appropriate, and we look at some data and do our surveys and see what should go next. And we're also a smart city development company, so as we bring bike share, we can do more, such as parking, to help the local fabric of Belmar. So looking at Hudson County, we launched with Hoboken and Weehawken in 2016 and 2015, and then 2017 we did some more expansion, and then 2018 we're going to add some more stations by the end of the year. So this is pictures of a dockless bike share system. As you can see, it's a mess. So these systems don't have stations. So with our stations, everything is organized and uncluttered. So station design process, we go through what we think will work, we bring it to you, we talk to the local community, we do our surveys, find what the right of way is, and then we implement. And then just here's a few pictures. You see it's orderly, it's off the sidewalk, leaves plenty of room for pedestrians to move around, and just makes it accessible for everyone. We also will do some community outreach and engagement, so being at the local fairs, talking to people, seeing how we can improve, and becoming a part of the community. Here are some projected stations. Again, as I said, we bring these to you. Projected cities that you could also work with. And there's some contact info.
Can you go back to that? I want to see the cities that you're, okay, I should go back.
So we already have Point Pleasant under contract, so
Right.
we're looking to work with these cities as well.
And then we're actually going to be going to Lake Como right after this to meet with them.
Okay.
Any questions?
Is that your presentation?
Yeah, I want to keep it brief.
All right, we have council go back up to the
Yeah.
dais and take questions. One of you don't mind hitting that button.
Gentlemen, steal your seat.
Give her a bump.
All right. Feel safer already? Okay, first question I have is, we do have a bicycle shop in town. You gonna take away their, any business, or how do you interact with?
Now, we think we'll be giving them some business, so we work with local bike shops, work out a contract with them, and they'll service the bikes.
They'll service the bikes.
Correct, they'll rebalance, bringing them to different stations, fixing what needs to be fixed, preventative maintenance, things like that.
So you wouldn't really be taking clients away from them?
No, so this is different from traditional bike rental. So this is you pay your one fee, let's say you pay the $95 to get unlimited 45-minute rides in a year. And then you see a station and you want to ride a bike and you just grab it and go. This isn't like walking into a bike shop and renting them for whatever X amount of time period they allow. It's more of getting around and then leaving it for the next person.
Okay. So would people riding your bikes just leave them anywhere in town?
Not anywhere at a station. So we have stations that are docking points, so you roll the bike into the docking point, lock it up, and then your ride's done.
We can also have a geofence area where you could have a dockless area, say the size of your Belmar Road over here. You can maybe designate it for 6 to 8 bikes, and that would designate on the app as a safe zone to lock your bike. Then if you lock it in that area, you won't be charged. It'd be almost like putting it into a physical dock.
Instead of like a bike rack, you
Correct.
don't need a bike rack.
Not 100% fully. That's why our program works differently than the fully dockless program. You still have to return it to an area, whether it's a geofence zone like our area in Liberty State Park. We have 40 bikes in Liberty State Park that are currently under a geofence. They're not physically docked into a dock themselves.
But if I was to ride the bike all day, all around town to different places, I could lock it anywhere?
Sure.
Just at the end of the day, return it?
Yeah, so if you have an annual membership, you have 45 minutes.
Yeah.
45 minutes?
Right, but you can just, once your 45 minutes is up, you just bring it to the station, and you lock it, and then it says it's over, and then you just unlock it again.
We're realizing the tourism and the residents down here, and especially the use they will get during, like a day like today, will probably be willing to work on the time of duration for each use, and definitely work on special pricing as well. If you have a fair going on or an event going on, might be half price rides, or if you're an annual member, you might get, say, 20 bonus minutes per day for a week. We run programs like that throughout. We partner with colleges to do that up through Hudson County, and actually we'll partner with whether it's a local business in Bayonne. We've done that. If you rented a bike in front of the establishment, you've got more minutes.
So I think it would be ideal for people coming down to use the beach for the day on New Jersey Transit. They come down,
Correct.
there's a station where they ride into the beach, so they just return it when they get there?
Yeah, so we would aim to have some stations at the beach, so people would ride right from the train station to the beach.
It's deemed as a first mile, last mile use of transportation, and on the alternate hours, it's used for recreation as well.
And are there different sizes? So if someone comes down with their 10 or 12-year-old,
Minimum age is at least 16.
Not that I would, but what prevents me from stealing your bike if it's at a dockless station?
It's tracked.
Yeah, there's
GPS.
GPS inside the bike.
Inside the bike.
Correct.
Where?
Plus, there's an RFID card and GPS locator, so like a SIM card, in the back of the bike with a touch keypad. Actually, you can see it from one of the slides they had that gave you, Mr. Mayor. And through that, say if you've had the bike all day and you're a member, I've got your credit card information. I call my next bike who processes our cards, and I know where you live, where the bike is, and call Belmar PD to get my bike back.
Mark?
So you have to be part of your network to use the bikes. So we have a lot of people from Pennsylvania coming in. We'll have transient boats coming in from Long Island.
It's easy to do. That's actually, Philadelphia has an X-Bike program, so if you get any tourists or vacations from Philadelphia, they already have an X-Bike app, you know? They don't have to pay
But that's the
anymore.
only ones that can use it. I mean, you couldn't swipe your credit card and use
You
it.
can, that takes 20 seconds to download the app and set an account up, and then you can pay as you go, or join a monthly plan or a yearly plan, whatever's more financially convenient for the user, and you jump on a bike. It takes about a minute to do.
What liability is there to the Belmar municipality? Or
No,
do we have to put anything out at all?
No, we're fully insured. We'll list the Borough of Belmar on the insurance policy, and then everything would come into our hands if there's an incident or of that nature, which has yet to happen.
Tom, I'm sorry, but do you have anything from the police department? Do you see anything here?
I was just thinking something, but it's, I just forgot what
Okay.
I was. It'll come back.
We would have to give up public right of way for you guys to put a docking station, correct?
Correct.
Approximately how many of these docking stations would you need to make it feasible? I know you're looking at Point Pleasant, how many are you guys putting in there?
Point Pleasant's supposed to receive 75 to 100 bicycles, so with a minimum of 75 bikes, you're talking about 100 docks. Docks are small.
You have the docks sort of clustered, right?
They're in clusters of 2, so you figure the size of this table would fit 4 bicycles, the size of that table.
Everybody takes a bike and rides to the beach, and all your bikes are at the beach, you have enough time.
Well, that's why we would employ a local bike shop to help us out. So we pay them per bike, per month, to service our bikes, which require very little service. The tires are durable, puncture-proof. The only thing that we need to do is maintain and oil the seat properly for the first year. Very rarely do we get a flat tire. If that occurs, you go on your app, you have a flat tire on the app. You can safely lock the bike wherever it is. It doesn't have to be in a particular zone, because we know that's a broken or a damaged bicycle, and if the user is really inconvenienced, they hop in a Lyft or an Uber, and we'll pick up the tab for that.
Yeah, my question was, if the docking stations down at the beach, if they all take the bikes and they all go down to the beach, you have to have enough docking stations. For
Yeah,
sure.
well,
Everybody
the
coming
beach
off the train is
the
going
beach
down.
will be considered, we'll probably per se have X amount of docks at the beach entrance, and then maybe at the separate entrance to the beach, have that as a geofence, and then during, prime time, we'll have to have our program manager down here, which would be potentially the local bike shop, and keep an eye on it to repopulate and recirculate the bicycles.
Right, they'll have a van that they would load up some bikes and bring it to an empty station.
Now, everybody that's in the membership would know where all the docking stations are.
It shows on the
Shows
app.
on your app.
Shows on your app.
Also, we'll have signs around, around the borough as well.
Do the docking stations require power utilities to them?
No,
It's just the
they're
hours on
anchored
there.
in.
Right now.
Yeah, as long as it's a concrete surface or any type of surface other than grass or dirt, they're anchored in and they're hard to remove. It'll take about a half an hour to install.
Just 2 more questions from me. People that are aware of this, they have the app, they have a membership, do they, if they're conscious of it, do they bring their own bike helmets?
Well, I mean,
Do you ever
that's
see that?
determined
You don't
by
offer them ever, right? They're
the
never-
user and local law, but yes, they do, and we've done events where we have given out, say, 100 or 200 helmets, to encourage every user to ride with the helmets and the disclosure when you download the app, and when you select the program for the app.
And second question, in any of the locations, nationally or in Jersey, do you ever utilize the docking stations or the bikes or anything for advertising, like
Yes.
local advertising?
Yes, as you see in the bikes have 2-sided panels, and those 2-sided panels are actually advertising panels. They're removable. Our program throughout Hudson County all have advertisers on them. We actually have a bike in Point Pleasant Beach with Mayor Reed that is geared up to promote advertising for Point Pleasant Beach. Has beach chair on it with an umbrella and a beach ball, just to show the potential capabilities of that. That's based on a yearly fee for that. And that's determined by market price for that. And in addition to that, in commercialized zones, we can put a 6x4 advertising panel that's also anchored into the ground with a small solar panel on top. So it's a two-sided static board that also generates revenue for the program as well.
And if we move forward, how quickly do you get set up this table? A week, a month, 3
So
months?
figuratively, if we're talking today, you submit for proposal, we respond, that relatively is signed rather quickly. Just use September as an example. You're talking on May, March of next year. The bikes are made by hand in Leipzig, Germany, and they're made per market. So you would have your own logo on the bike, as does all the other programs. So it's very hard to take a bike from Hudson County because this wouldn't say Belmar Bike Share on it. So we wouldn't want to do that, for the star. So you deserve your name and your logo on each bike that you have.
So if you got off the Belmar train station and you took the bike, would you be allowed to ride it to Avon or Bradley Beach?
Yeah, I mean, if Avon comes on board and Bradley comes on board, certainly. If Avon, say, didn't want to come on board, that's when we would ask maybe businesses or local people that own, let's say, a large lot, private property, we can install on there, and you can have a station there.
But if I rode to Avon Asbury, I could just lock it for the day.
Correct.
Just pay the extra. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could also lock it to a station that's there.
Correct. You have a bike dock out front, a generic bike dock. You can dock it there if you want to. Doesn't necessarily have to be our dock. That's the purpose of having an electronic lock.
Any other questions?
I think we would definitely need some type of dedicated bike lane on Ocean Avenue if we're going to pursue something like this. And we got a lot of traffic down there. It might be, could potentially be a little dangerous if we.
Well, in Hudson County, we've seen people use a lot of side streets. And since we've launched, we've seen a lot of people are more aware of cyclists, not just the people that use our system, but other cyclists, and it's helped to actually promote and give awareness to the need for bike lanes. So they've recently put in a bike lane on their main street in Hoboken.
Okay, gentlemen.
I have a question.
Oh, Tom.
Yes. I'm just curious, what's your percentage of clientele? Like, do you have, is it mostly members that join, or is it just people who just use it for one time or 2 times?
It's mostly people that join and pay for the annual membership.
So that's a lot.
I mean, it's
more.
gonna be different depending on the market. So
Okay. I was just curious.
down here, I'm sure we have a good mix of pay-as-you-go and annual memberships.
Okay.
But up in Hudson County, it's a lot more commuter-based as well. So there's a lot of annual memberships. People use it 2 or 3 times a day.
And did you say Monmouth County Freeholders is promoting this? Fred?
Well, no, when I originally spoke to Freeholder Director Arnone, he thought it was a really good idea, and he suggested that I reach out. So there's nothing, no formal support or anything like that from the county per se, but Tom just thought it was a good idea. And so that's why when I reached out to all the towns, I said that I would copy him, and I did on all the emails in case anybody wanted to talk to him about it. And again, if you remember me, he did come to the meeting in Bradley. So, yeah, he thought it was a great idea. But that was him.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Council.
Thank you for your time. Next on the workshop, last week I went to the library meeting, and I was really impressed with the work and the activities that our Belmar Library, in conjunction with the new community center on 7th Avenue and D Street, is doing. As actually like an annex of the library. So I invited our librarian, Rosemary Korblack, here tonight to kind of talk to us and let us know what's going on at the library/community center. Bro.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to start off by asking a question, if that's okay. I see a few familiar faces here, but not everyone. And I was just going to ask when the last time was. Have you been in our library in the past year or two, or attended any of our events or programs? Okay. All right, we have to do a little better than that. And if you haven't been here in the last 5 years, you have to come in and get a new library card. But I would like to extend a personal invitation to do that. We have a lot of good programs going on. We're trying to add more and more. We do like a lot of input from our patrons, our residents. The programs are open to everyone. You don't have to be a Belmar resident, but we'd like to get your input. And that's how a lot of our programs developed, through people giving us suggestions, and we tried them out, and a lot of them have worked. So please stop in and see us and get a library card. Okay, so we do have, can you hear me?
I go towards you a little bit.
Okay. Is that better?
You gotta talk a little bit closer to it.
Okay.
Closer.
Okay. We have so many things going on at the library, and we have been able to switch a lot of our programs and events over to the community center. So it's really becoming a bustling hub over there. We have fitness classes, both physical and mental. 5 days a week. We have 3 chair yoga classes, 2 strength and stretch, 1 yoga Pilates, 1 Zumba Gold. And they started out as classes for seniors, and they just blossomed. We have so many people. Every now and then we have to send someone away because there's not enough floor space, which is why we're adding more classes.
Sounds like parking.
Yes, it does. We also have the fitness classes for the mind. We have Mahjong twice a day on Monday. We have a bridge class on Wednesday, and we have a meditation class every Monday morning. We have all of our cultural events over at the community center, starting with the Chinese New Year in January or February, depending on the time period that it runs, our Black History program, our Irish celebration, our spring celebration, the summer concerts that we have on the lawn, that's jumping back to the library. But all the other ones, we've been trying to have at the community center because it's a much bigger area. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. We have been developing partnerships with Belmar Elementary School over the years, St. Rose Grammar School, and touching into St. Rose High School. We haven't smoothed that out yet, but we're working on it, bilingual story time.
What's that? What's the bilingual story time?
Well, the high school students in one of the Spanish classes wrote in Spanish and illustrated story tales for children. And they wanted to come over to the library and read them to the children. And the logistics have just been a little bit difficult to work on, so we're gonna pick up again on that in the fall. But I thought that would be a great idea. We'd also like to get the parents of some of the children, because the language barrier for the children themselves in the Belmar Elementary School, there really is none. It's their parents. So we wanted to try to make it a family affair. We also partner with the Historical Society and co-sponsor some events, the Belmar Women's Club, the Belmar Arts Center. If anybody's been to went to the Harry Potter program we had in April, that was the success of that was much due to the Belmar Arts Center. But it was a collaboration, as it usually is, and we've had requests now to have that every year. So every time we try something, for the most part, it really flies. And people, again, we take their input, we ask them for suggestions, what would you like to see? And we will almost always try it if we can. And most of the time it works. Every once in a while, the timing is not right. We also have programs for children. We have story time on Wednesday. We have youth art workshop, which meets every month during the school year and every week during the summer. This year we started the after-school homework club, which didn't quite take off because we started it a little too late, but we're going to bring it up again in September. And the after-school shake out your stresses for the youth yoga classes. That was a big success. What else do we have?
Well, and if, I'm going to chime in too, because there is also a lot going on in the community center. There's, of course, the closed closet, the food pantry has continued in terms of a resource, which was one of the reasons why we first endeavored to take a look at that lease for the community center to keep it open. We have our Belmar Senior VIP room. We have over, I think, 125 members now of Belmar, mostly Belmar residents who bought a membership card. It gives them access to a really kind of nice living room area where there's a coffee bar and the news is playing and they can do puzzles or they can just chat with each other. We've done some cooking classes, making that available to our senior VIPs. So Ro is completely right. We are trying to make that place a bustling center of activity. And I encourage you all to stop by and visit. We're also, Ro hasn't gotten there yet, but making a lot of progress on our makerspace, which would be located on the second floor. So the makerspace is essentially a STEM lab, an opportunity for people to come and tinker on a project.
You just want to explain what STEM, the acronym
Sure.
STEM is for?
STEM, and I like STEAM better, actually. So STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Okay, I got that. That's why it's easier to say STEAM. So a makerspace is really an opportunity for STEAM to happen. And it's everything from to create and learn how to use something on a 3D printer to develop a cool sewing project or quilt, learn to quilt. It's all about working with your hands. And so the library board has been aggressively pursuing the idea of creating a makerspace with the help of John Hutchinson, actually. It's been really wonderful. So who's here tonight. So it's really starting to take off.
Now you said about the food pantry, just the food pantry is still
Food pantry and closed closet still operate 2 days a week.
2 days, which days?
Tuesday, Monday, Thursday? Monday and Thursday.
So you bring food down there for the,
Absolutely.
and close?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. And the makerspace, we're hoping for a soft opening in late July, early August. So that's another biggie. And another, Ro's working on new stuff. Sometimes we get this idea and it takes a little while to gel, and a year later it finally comes to fruition. But we just issued our first monthly newsletter for the library. And if anyone would like, we try to get people's, when they sign up for new library cards, we try to get their emails, but anyone who wants to get on the email list, call the library or stop. I actually have a sign-in sheet I can leave if anybody, would like to sign up for that. A call to the library, will help. One of our biggest events of the year is tomorrow at Taylor Pavilion. It's our 7th annual VNA Fashion Show and Luncheon. And it started as a tiny little idea in cooperation with the Visiting Nurse Association in Manasquan. And it just grew and grew every year. And people, we have about 165 people on the sign-in sheet. And we've had to tell people, standing room only, and hopefully you'll get a little bite of something to eat. But that's probably our biggest event. And everybody really looks forward to it.
What time is that?
12 noon tomorrow at Taylor Pavilion.
Will there be parking?
Kind of.
And I do want to highlight, Ro mentioned the library's Concerts on the Lawn, which I adore, because again, this is all speaking to ways in which we can encourage people to feel like the library is approachable and a place that they want to be. But I'd like to mention that it's also the only time, I think, of the year in any town where I get a noise complaint about the library. So.
I think you're doing a wonderful job. Mark, anything?
Yeah, Pat Rowdy on the Lawn is a really good event. And,
Yes.
I really enjoyed the Unique Creatures event that was done a couple weeks ago.
Yes, that was a big hit too. Almost 100 people, I was told, so that's good. Any questions?
I just want to, being a member of the Belmar Cares Group, I want to thank you for allowing us to use your space downstairs, because it's always perfect
Our
spot
pleasure.
to gather.
Our pleasure.
And I also have friends that would like to play on the lawn. Just contact the library.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
It's a band, it's young kids that are extremely talented, and they do the Beatles.
Oh, that's great. Sure, we'd love to try that.
Who's the Beatles?
Okay, Rob, thank you very much for
Thank
coming down,
you.
appreciate it. Okay. Anything else on the workshop, anybody?
Oh, sorry.
No, just on the memorial tree and the benches, and where are we at on that?
We did a walkthrough in McCleary Park, starting to identify locations there, and Mike and I are going to turn our attention to Silver Lake Park this week. So hopefully by your next meeting, we'll have something for you.
Okay, thanks. Over the weekend, I got some emails and some text messages from boat owners at the marina. And I think we have to, I know we tried to help them out. I think we're going to need to do a little more for the boat owners down there. And the boat owners I'm talking about are, most people, they go fishing, as I understand. I don't have a boat, I don't go fishing. But they get there early enough to get a parking space before the Marina Grill opens up. But it's the boat owners that want to come down in the afternoon, evening, to sit on their boats and relax. We're coming up short on parking spaces for them. So I want to help out as much as we can. I'm looking at that parking area for the what do you call it, the trailers. You know, during the day, the people that come down with their boats on the trailer use the ramp. We need that space for them so they can park because the trailer is so difficult. But at the end of the day, when those cars leave with the trailers, there's probably space that opens up there. I think that we might be able to utilize for the boat slip owners, not for the restaurant, people going to the restaurant. You know, because so if we have like a permit or something like that, you're a boat owner, you can park in there when space opens up. So, you know, I'm just throwing that out to you if you have any ideas.
We did something similar to that last year, I believe, or 2 years ago, with issuing permits and allowing boat owners to go park in there, after the trailers had gotten out.
Did we do that, Kyle?
We did that last year as kind of an intermediary step.
How'd that work out?
You need to man it. So we would need to man it with a special officer or a parking attendant or something of that sort. So, you know, what we can do is, we went down today and we were taking a look at a couple different options with the chief of police, and Mike Campbell has DPW. So we have some thoughts that we're going to put together for your consideration. And again, we'll take into account any potential expenses that might be incurred for doing that.
Yeah, it'll probably cost us a little bit more, but we're bringing in a lot of money there from the boat slip owners. So, and I know this weekend, how quickly can we move on this? Because if it's another nice weekend, we're gonna have the same situation as last weekend with boat owners not having enough parking space. Even though we try to give them some permit parking, but it's just not as much as we need.
We have another meeting tomorrow morning, so we're going to
Really?
give you some suggestions.
We already have the permit with stickers.
Yes.
So they can be handed out quickly, as soon as people get
So
them.
we just need an attendant there in that, we can't have them park overnight or stay in there
No,
overnight.
they
because
definitely can't be overnight, but we'll have some thoughts for you in the next day or two.
it's probably just for the weekend, probably like
Volume days.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
The only problem I see is that if they're parking there on Friday night, and they want to continue to park there, then we have a problem with boat trailers Saturday and Sunday morning.
They wouldn't be able to stay overnight. They'd have to leave by, let's say,
Well,
11 p.m.
the restaurant closes, so I'm sure they would just have to get off their boat, walk over, and then move it into the lot where there are spaces opened up. Inconvenient? I don't think that much of an inconvenience.
I just hate to see them get parking tickets at the point.
Me too.
Cars.
Yeah,
That
but-
would create another problem.
I think it's a good short-term solution. I think long-term, we have a lot of inefficiencies in the parking lot for parking in general there. So I think it'd also be worthwhile taking a look at the big picture and maybe having our borough engineer look at some potential long-term parking solutions.
Yeah. Right. Jen, anything?
No, I think it's a good idea. I think, you know, they should definitely address their concerns because it's difficult for them.
Right. Okay, very good. So you have a meeting tomorrow?
Yes.
Am I invited?
You're always welcome in my office, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, petitions. Anybody out in the audience with a petition? Seeing none, we'll go to the approval of minutes.
I move that the minutes of the regular meeting held on June 6, 2018 be approved as recorded and that a copy thereof be posted on the borough's website.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, reports of council. Councilman Mark Levis, want to start us off?
Sure. So last week, I met with our chief of lifeguards, our chief of police, and a research project manager from Rutgers University. We discussed the possibility of evaluating drone technology for life-saving applications on the Belmar Beach. Rutgers has worked with the city of Long Branch in the past to evaluate a drone that they modified to be able to drop a small inflatable device to a swimmer in distress. For now, we're still determining the scope of what this project would involve in Belmar, but we're hoping that Rutgers is going to be bringing in a commercially available waterproof drone in late July or early August to evaluate it with life-saving operations. One of the main reasons we're looking at this is not for normal day-to-day lifeguard operations, but really to aid in the hours after the lifeguards are off duty and there's a skeleton crew remaining. You know, when the sun is still up and people still think it's okay to go swimming. A flotation device delivered via drone could really add some valuable seconds to someone in distress. So there's two main objectives of what we'd like to determine from this project. One is, can the existing commercially available technology be used to effectively deliver a life-saving device to a swimmer in distress? And two, what steps do we need to do to integrate this technology into our existing lifeguard operations? So, again, it's really just a research project. Nothing's, we don't have to put any funding on it. Rutgers is going to buy the drone, and we're essentially giving them permission to evaluate it on our beach with the assistance of our lifeguard staff to see how it's going to work with them.
So they could potentially launch a drone from the 10th Avenue Lifeguard Station, send it down to 2nd Avenue Beach faster than the lifeguards could get there and drop it off.
From the videos I saw of them testing it in Long Branch, they were able to get a drone out to a swimmer faster than a lifeguard. Now, this doesn't reduce the need for a lifeguard. We still need a lifeguard to physically pull someone out of the water. But if you can get a flotation to them faster, it buys them a lot more time. So it's interesting technology. I'm looking forward to see how well it's going to work.
How do they handle the operators of the drone? I mean, you would have to have some sort of training to operate that.
Right. So
you'd have to have a group of lifeguards.
So that's what I've asked. That's what I've asked Eric to give us. Was maybe select a couple lifeguards who he feels would be able to look at this, and that's one of the things we're going to be evaluating too. We know the guys from Rutgers can probably operate this thing because they've been doing it the whole time, but we want to see if we can train a lifeguard to be able to use it effectively.
Right. I know as a lifeguard, there's some days where the water gets so rough, you can't get a jet ski out or a boat out or a kayak out because of the waves coming in, where the drone can just fly over that
It may be able to.
and get out to where the bather is. Okay, thank you. Mark?
Thank you.
Mark?
Thanks, Mayor. I really don't have anything really important for this meeting, so I'll defer until next week.
Okay.
Since we have a lot on the agenda.
Councilwoman Nicolai?
Yeah, not a lot. I know we've got school ending. Tonight's the Belmar Elementary School graduation. Just want to congratulate all of the students and their parents for doing such great jobs. There were a couple different accidents in town with bicycles and things like that. If everybody could just be a little bit more cautious to walkers, bike riders, people crossing the streets, etc. I know that the number of people in town certainly increases immensely, so if everyone would just be careful of that. And always, please shop, dine, and buy local.
Thank you. This Friday night at 6 p.m., we have a ribbon cutting for a new business in town called Creative Lab. It's two doors down from Don's Pizza. Former Belmar resident Lauren Stout is the owner, and it's I guess it's getting into the teaches technology, right?
It's a makerspace.
It's makerspace.
Yeah,
Can you explain what makerspace is?
So that the makerspace is what the library is looking. Are you funny me?
No, she's laughing at me.
It's a STEAM lab. It's a STEAM labs where people will be able to go and learn how to use certain technologies and tinker with equipment.
Very good. Oh, and last week, I participated in a program at Belmar Elementary called Teacher for a Day. I was assigned to the second grade class, Miss Lauren Diffley's class. She's a great teacher. If your child is in second grade, you're very lucky if your child is assigned to her grade. I had a great time. I was there from 8 until 3. A couple days later, I got a card from one of the students, three-dimensional card. And if you remember back in the late 50s, early 60s, there was a show on radio called the Art Linkletter Show. Children say the darndest things. So I selected this one card written to me by Zoe. She's my new BFF. It says, "Dear Mayor McGovern, I'm glad you had fun, and I really miss you. I hope you are the real mayor instead of a junior mayor." So all day long, this my new BFF, I'm a junior mayor. So I really enjoyed the class. It was a great program, and that wraps up our reports. Okay, public session. Public session on resolutions, only on the agenda. We will continue to have a public session at the end of this meeting. Is that the right word, or should we go right to?
No, that was correct.
Okay, okay. So, is there anybody that would like to come up to the microphone, state your name, address? Seeing none, I make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Resolutions.
All in favor?
Aye. So now we will move to the 2018 budget hearing. And we're going to call up Robin.
Robin's going to join us, and we have the PowerPoint presentation for all of you, so you may want to come down and put the lights if you could on you right now. I don't think you need them.
I think I talk loud enough.
You do.
You tell me to quiet down sometimes. Especially because Colleen sits in the office next to me. She knows everything I do all day long. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Robin Kirk. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Borough of Belmar. I come to one meeting a year, because that's all I'm required to present the budget as has been introduced by the Mayor and Council. This year will probably be my last. For those of you who don't know, I'll be retiring at the end of the year. So, you won't have to watch this boring slideshow anymore. Hopefully, the next time you see this, it'll be nicer colors or something, because it doesn't really change a lot every year. So, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but we will have a public session on the budget once I've completed. So, hold your applause and all that good stuff on no tax rate increase until the end. The Borough of Belmar's budget is comprised of 4 different funds. We do have the current fund, which is, I should stand in front of that, should I? $15.3 million. Just so you have, on every one of these slides, I'll have like a 6-year history on what our budget looks like. And this is why I'm going to go through it quickly. Because if you look at that, we are very stable. Things don't change a lot. Although we do a lot more, we do a lot of services, we do capital projects. We try to strike stable budgets every year. We plan for things ahead of time, so if something's going up, we might kick something else down. So again, our current fund budget, which is taxpayer dollars, $15.3 million, our water and sewer utility, 3.7, our beach utility, 4.6, and our little parking utility, which is all those parking spaces down that beachfront, 163,500. I'll now go through a little more detail on each of the budgets. I'm going to discuss our utilities first, because those are the more flatlined, not much about them, so we'll go through those first. Our water and sewer utility. The blue line you see there is our other expenses. Budgets are broken down usually into these four categories. The other expense in the water utility is the largest part of our utility. That is because over $1.9 million of that, close to $2 million, is actually paid to outside agencies. Whether it's to SMRSA to get rid of the sewer, or it's the water coming in from New Jersey American Water and the New Jersey Water Supply Authority. So with this budget, very little we can do about it, because it's automatic payments to go to those outside utilities. The other three lines there are capital and debt. As you can see, that burgundy line, that's our capital and debt. We did a $5 million project several years ago. We are ramping up and we're paying for that now. No rate increase, we're paying for it. Planning, and that's what we actually do very well around here. How do we pay for it? Water and sewer billing. For those of you who live here, you pay us a water bill. The one thing about this, and all of our utilities actually, is they're very weather dependent. The more it rains, the more you don't water your lawn. So we could see dips, and we did see a dip last year. We had a lot of rain in the summer. Everybody's flowers were beautiful without us using our water. So our billings went down a little bit. But we plan for these types of events. If for some reason we have a lower usage, as we go throughout the year, I might tell Mike Campbell, don't order any more water meters. Let's hold back on a little bit of our capital projects so that we don't have a shortfall. All planned through the budget process. The next line on there is our surplus. We'll go over surplus in another slide. Okay, this is our surplus. As you can see, the blue line there, that is what do I start out the year with? What's the excess money that we had from a previous year that has rolled into our current year? As you can see, that blue line's been going up a little bit. The reason for that, again, planning. We knew we were doing these $1 million projects. We knew we were going to have to start paying for them. So while we haven't raised our rates in over 3 years now, the last time we did raise our rates was planning to build up our surplus so that as these debt payments start to come on for that $5 million project we did several years ago, we would have that surplus and we would already have the rates in place to start making those payments. That's the blue line. The red line is what did we anticipate in the budget? So as you can see, we try to keep the anticipated down a little bit, so we built up the surplus. The yellow line is what did we regenerate? What did we put back into our surplus during that current year? As you can see, in 17 we took a little dip. Because what did it do last year? It rained a lot. Again, works on that. So this year we have our surplus. We have anticipated a little bit more of that surplus. We're paying off more of that debt. One of the things that is intended for this year is to not only start getting that debt payment up, but also to permanently finance it. Right now we're on a temporary, what's called a bond anticipation note. We roll that every year. That project's now completed though. So we will go out to permanent financing. We'll get on a level 20-year debt schedule, and we've got these revenues now that we've anticipated. We've set the rates, and we have the surplus to start paying off. The beach utility. Nobody gave a beach report tonight. What happened?
Oh, I know.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well, you can go.
I'll give a beach report. Wait, let me get to that page. Okay. Beach utility, again, weather dependent. Our budgets have stayed stable. That blue line up top is salaries. You'll see a dip this year. We didn't cut anybody's salary. We didn't get rid of staff. We just budgeted a little tighter. We went on, here's the exact time we know everybody's working. Here's the exact pay we know we're going to pay everybody. So we were able to decrease that a little bit rather than having any extra and surplus kind of salaries, bringing people in or out or whatever. Last year, rainy season. We budgeted as normal, 2% raises for everybody, which we did give out raises to everybody again this year. But we always kind of floated that a little bit. just in case, maybe want to extend the season, have more lifeguards, whatever it was. This year, we just came in tighter because we did have a bad season last year. We lost some of our revenues, you'll see that on the next slide. Didn't have as much surplus, so we're just holding a tight line on that beach utility budget. So we can provide the same services, and we know we can make it another year. Even if it rained again this year, we structured the budget so that if we had 2 bad years in a row, we'd still be able to provide all the same services. The beach badges, $2 million. That's the red line. Staying flat, staying steady. Although we had a bad year last year, we did take in more than $2 million. We always budget a little low on what we anticipate to take in, just for those rainy years. We use up the surplus from our previous years. We'll see that on the next slide. The blue line is the surplus we're using from last year. As you can see, that went down. Why? We didn't have as much. We have it, but not as much. And again, we structure our beach utility budgets, always looking out 2 years. What if you have a rainy season? Keep some of the surplus to the side so that you can still make it through that second year. Next slide. Here's our surplus. The blue line, as you can see, January 1, dipped down this year, again because of the rainy season last year. The red line is what we anticipated last year. That yellow line is what did we regenerate. So because of that dip, we didn't regenerate as much as we used, we had a little less surplus. Again, planning it out, we do this over a 2-year period, we knew that we could tighten up this year's budget. We didn't do $50,000 worth of capital improvements down there. Bought some bike racks, not a whole bunch. Bought a couple of new Bobby bats, not as many as we normally would. Stuck with the lockers we had, didn't buy any new. Doesn't stop the services, we're still able to provide everything, just by cutting back on the extras, I'll call it. Parking utility, tiny little utility, but the most volatile that we have. So $163,000. Majority of that does go towards salaries and wages. You say, what, $68,000 worth of salary and wages? We have our own in-house maintenance people that take care of those kiosks down there 90% of the time. I think the first Dunkin' Donuts card we received in a parking station happened last weekend. We automatically get alerts every time there's a problem with one of those parking stations. We went down there and somebody attempted to use a Dunkin' Donuts card to pay for a parking spot. Colleen asked me why I would take that kind of money. I love coffee, but not the parking station. Anyway, the reason this is our most volatile is the fact that there are only so many parking spaces down there. When it's sunny, they're full. You can't add more to them. I can add a lot more people to the beach when it's on a sunny day, but I can't add more parking spaces. So when it rains, they're not there, it's gone. I can't add back to that on a sunny day because all the parking spaces are already full. Again, we plan for it. Parking meter revenues, you'll see I dipped it down a little bit this year because honestly, we did not meet that anticipated revenue last year. It was one of our worst years on parking. It was just because of the rain. Budget didn't go bust. We still had other money that came in, little things here and there. We were able to decrease some of the new parts that we bought for those parking stations down there. So we were able to balance the budget by not spending all of the expenses out of the budget. Surplus, as you can see again, the blue line. Our blue line still does very well in our parking utility. Again, because it is the most volatile, we definitely intend to keep the most amount of surplus in that and use the least amount that we need. Because again, plan it out 2 years. If I had a couple of years of very bad weather down that beachfront, that would be the most volatile and we'd use the surplus up the fastest. So we try to operate it as tight as we can and not use all the revenue each year. The current fund, here's the exciting one. Wait, I have to get to my next picture. Current fund is what all of the taxpayers of this town pay for. $15.3 million. Current fund. I'm going to put my glasses on because I wrote a lot on this one. $15.3 million. Again, this is very stable from previous years. You will also see a lot of those lines stay very stable. The largest line there is our salary and wages, 7.4. That is up slightly from last year by about 140,000. We have settled all of our union contracts, 2% raises. Everybody's getting back on their health benefits still. So we're keeping the salary line. Our police department is also up to full complement now. So with the interlocal with Lake Como. The next line, oh, I'm sorry, that was other expenses. Other expenses, 7.4 million. That is everything in the budget that buys a police car to a pencil. Fixes the police car, puts new tires on it, buys some fire equipment. Everything that they go out and service. The only reason for an increase in this one actually was our new garbage contract. Our new garbage contract went up about $50,000. Otherwise, all department heads, very agreeable, whether they like to or not, were told no increases. We're keeping everything flat. So what they had last year, they got again this year. Salary wages, $5.4 million. That, again, did go up slightly, about $140,000. That was for the salary increases due to the union contracts. Capital and debt, $1,446,000. That is going up slightly by about $165,000. That is to continue to pay off our debt and also some old deferred charges that we had on the books for like walkways through the marina, some things like that. So we have stayed stable on making our payments that are needed. Reserve for uncollected taxes, that's a little tiny one that you can't even see on there. That is to help us pay for everything, even when people don't pay us. There are some people who don't pay their taxes. But yet we have to pay the county, we have to pay the school, and we have to pay for all the other expenses in town. So we have to have that line there, unfortunately, to bill all you good taxpayers who pay us, so I know I can meet our budget numbers. The one thing is, we were able to bring that down this year, because everybody paid last year. I don't know whether to thank the IRS or the federal government for it, but everybody wanted to pay their taxes last year so they could write them off their federal income taxes. So our collection rate was excellent last year, so I was able to bring that line down. The last thing on there is deferred charges, $42,210. That number should be $42,000. That is to pay for the reval that we had a couple of years ago. We're paying that off over 5 years. The other $210 you will see there. You're going to hear that we have a resolution on tonight to amend our budget by $210 out of $15 million. The state of New Jersey picked up on the fact that we were a little short in our public defender account at the end of last year. While money immediately came in January, the state of New Jersey wants me to pick up that $210 this year. So it's paying me, to me, from me,
That you've already paid.
that we've already paid. But they need me to show it on paper. So we are amending our budget for $210 tonight for the public defender account that was short by $210 on December 31st. The library, they do wonderful things, you just heard about it. $559,000 this year. This is a statutory amount. It goes by the total assessments in town, and we have to raise so much each year. Their budget is going up by $36,000. It's a separate tax that you actually see on your tax bill. Well, they're going to go up 36. The municipality is actually going to go down $36,000 on what we bill all of you. So we left the tax rate the same. We're on revenues?
Now revenue.
Now we are on revenue, $7,199,000. That was actually like $7,200,000. I think it went down by $759. So we are leaving the taxes the same this year. Local revenues, I'm going to get into another slide on those. But again, as you can see, according to the chart down the bottom, a lot of things staying the same and staying stable. Our surplus use, other local revenues that come in, our marina, the court revenues. Building department is doing absolutely wonderful. All this building going on in town. So, but we will go over our local revenues, which is a main part of our budget, in a second. Can we go to the surplus slide? Our surplus. As you can see, the blue line, I should ask a question, what is that? January 1, right? January 1st surplus. As you can see, we took a dive, went up, dipped down a little bit, and now we're on our way back up. What's causing that? What's causing that is those local revenues that are coming in. Taking in a little more money every year than we actually anticipate. But we have left the burgundy line, what we need in our budget. We've left that the same. Not necessarily increasing it, telling the police department they can buy another car. My council would love it if I said go buy another car, use up some of the surplus. The intent is to build that surplus back up. Let's have that excess there. We run into an emergency where we need to pay for something. that either wasn't budgeted and we have to have that money for next year. A one-time expense, do we need to pay something off? Things like that. So we try to bring that surplus up in order for the unforeseen, things that we need to pay for. But the use of our surplus to actually operate on a day-to-day, try to get that to a flat number, as you can see we have done over the past 3 years. Okay, last slide. How do we keep the taxes with no increase? And how have we done that? We have brought in other revenues into this town. Over the past several years, going to my slide, local revenues have gone from $4 million up to $6.6 million. We have been able to increase what local revenues we bring in, other than taxes. Of course, the largest one was the largest one was the interlocal with Lake Como for the police department. Granted, it did cost us some money, but we did bring about $1 million in. That's going up to $1.2 million this year. The other thing, the pilot payments from the developers. Fifth Avenue and Main Street now comes into the borough as a pilot payment. They pay conventional taxes on the land. They pay us a separate bill for the improvement. Just like all of you pay taxes on land and your house, on their house, they pay us directly through what's called a pilot payment. Everybody else pays their taxes, part of that comes to us, part of it goes to the county, part of it goes to the school. When you do a pilot agreement, 95% of that payment comes to the municipality. So we have agreements with them for 30 years, 35 years, where those taxes come to us, not necessarily to the school, not out to the county, but it all comes here. So it helps us increase our revenues. The other thing we've been very good at, and through our departments and our department heads, coming up with other arrangements of interlocal agreements. There's a $62,000 increase in our local revenues this year, because we had a fire official who wanted to go work for other towns. Well, guess what? You can do that, but you can do it from here. He went out, he made the agreements, Colleen worked on it. We're our fire official now, not really increasing a lot of hours, but he's not only able to do our inspections, he does Spring Lake Heights inspections, Spring Lakes inspections, and he was already doing Lake Como, but we've now combined it into an interlocal agreement where it all comes through Belmar. So Belmar's revenues actually went up $62,000, helps us pay for other things. The other thing that's hitting our budget this year as a local revenue is, and I heard you all talking about it, and I know it's causing problems with parking in the marina. We have a very nice building over there. Last year, that building was only paying us 6 months rent. We also have 2 buildings down our beachfront, the 5th Avenue and the 10th Avenue pavilions. While we do split the revenues between the current fund and the beach utility for those 2 buildings, last year also, those were only 6 months rent. They are now coming online for a full year. So that was another $90,000 that came into our local budget to help offset and keep the taxes down. That's pretty much everything I have. That's why it's so blank. If anybody has questions regarding the budget?
Why don't you go back up and then we can do the public hearing, and Robin and our auditor is on hand here today as well, Chuck Fallon. You want to come on up in case we have some questions?
Yes.
So you said that 90,000, that is rent?
We haven't made a motion to open up for.
I nodded my head, sorry.
I don't want Colleen or people to yell at the community.
I make a motion that we open public portion for the hearing on the budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, so,
Raise your name when you called.
right. Please stand up, come up to the microphone and state your name.
Hi there, my name is Anne Marie Drzanovich. I live at 605 11th Avenue. So my question, was about, you said the $90,000?
Is an increase over last year's.
So do you know the total amount from, so this is Marina Grill and the 2 pavilions?
It's 2 billion, 353,000.
340,000.
340,000 total. That comes into
For
our
the full year?
For the full year.
For all 3?
All 3.
And that's just a portion of the oceanfront pavilions that are shared 60/40 with the beachfront.
Right, so The borough takes in 40,000 to the current fund, and 60,000 goes to the beach utility on the 2 pavilions down the ocean front.
Okay. And then how much out of that comes from Marina Grill?
Marina Grill's 100% of the current fund.
So,
And-
you're asking how much does the Marina Grill pay in total?
Right.
I wish I knew the number off the top of my head. Do you have that there?
You said that total number was like 340 from all
Yes.
three?
I think
Yes.
it's 250, but I'm.
250. That's between the Marina Grill and the pier.
And is that all the revenue that the town gets from the Marina Grill?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
One other thing, I just want, well, you say revenue, they also pay for police expenses.
Yes.
They do get a one-time bill every year for
Additional.
special police officers that we have. Last year was approximately 30,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Want to raise your hand?
Hi, Linda.
Linda Sharkus, 404th Avenue. How do the marina revenue compare to last year? You didn't mention that in your discussion.
I'm still waiting. My anticipation right now, because we actually had some back bills that we got caught up on, is that we should actually see about a $40,000 increase. I am still waiting on a final report from Diane. The last one I saw, we were just about even.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Seeing no other questions, I make a motion to close the public portion of the budget.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I just have a few questions for Rob before we
Sure.
You said we're getting an increase from Lake Como for the police department.
Yes.
Can you just explain to me, because I know we only charge them 25% of what the police department revenue is, so is it increasing?
Police department expenses.
Or expenses. Is it increasing to get that extra revenue, our police department budget?
We have two things that go on every year with Lake Como. What I've anticipated this year is actually our police department budget went up a little bit, not a lot. But what we actually put, let me explain it this way. We come up with a dollar amount that the police department is 25% of. Okay? And we say that's your bill. At the end of the year, I actually say, here is what we really spent, and we either balance bill them, or did we overbill them? This year's budget, it's actually really the same amount that the 25% is being billed to them, but what we're seeing as an increase is the balance bill they owe us from last year.
So we don't, well, at this time, we're presenting you our budget, it's all of our anticipated expenses and revenues. However, how it all washes out by the end of the year could be an adjusted figure. We wanted to be sure that the interlocal, or the contract with Lake Como was fully reimbursing us for 25% of our police budget, which results in that balance bill that Robin talks to.
So right now, I've already talked to Louise. They owe us $40,000 from last year.
Right.
Okay? So, but yes, I go through this process every year. We meet with Louise. Because what I got a quick question on as soon as they introduced their budget was that it was claimed there was no increased cost in their police department. Okay? So I'm sure that's where the question's coming from. Okay? I have already met with Louise, and we've already balanced it out. And she's aware, she owes me from last year and what's going forward from this year.
And one more question. Principal on our debt, how much of the principal was paid off in that 1.4?
I'd have to pull up my sheets. I want to
Our
say,
principal debt payments across all the funds is $1.86 million, and this is an increase of about $163,000 over what we paid in principal last year. So our attempt was to increase how much we were paying on principal.
okay. I can tell you most of that principal increase is probably split between the water and the
Yeah.
current fund.
Yeah, it's across all funds, not just current.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mark?
I'm okay.
Jen?
I just want to thank all of the council. Again, my last presentation, so hopefully it looks better and flashier next year. I know it's getting kind of boring. Thank Colleen. She was very helpful this year. She actually did the presentation for me because I've been in Florida for a week for my retirement home. But again, thank you to the council for everybody that came and met with us, gave us feedback on the budget.
And if I may, because I really can't let this kind of budget presentation pass without really giving a hearty thank you to Robin. Budgets like this don't happen by accident. They're the result of a lot of hard work and years of hard work and planning. And I think you see that when you look at the slides and you see the consistency, you see the revenue growth. And that really, I mean, it's due to a lot of hard work from our department heads who are doing more with less, but it mostly is the responsibility of this woman from tonight. So I just wanted to publicly thank her for getting that.
And Robin, how many years have you been working for us?
The day I walk out the door, it'll be 34.
34. Okay, so now I have to make a motion for the resolution to amend the 2018 budget? Okay, I make a motion to pass the resolution to amend the 2018 budget. Do I have a second? Second.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor McGovern?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
Yes.
And next, I make a motion to pass the resolution adopting 2018 budget as amended. Do I have a second? Second.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor McGovern?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
Yes.
Okay, now moving on to resolutions. Make a motion for the resolution authorizing issuance of the plenary retail consumption license to Klein's Fish Market Incorporated for the period ending June 30th, 2019. Second.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor McGovern?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
Yes.
Yeah. Calling for the discussion for this next one. Should I just make a motion on this
You
resolution?
can make a motion, or you can discuss it beforehand. It's up
Yeah,
to
can we
you.
discuss it beforehand? Yes, you can discuss. All right, this next resolution is asking for the authorization for an addendum to the 5th and 10th Avenue Pavilion concession leases to clarify certain provisions. It talks about a tent for the 10th Avenue concession. Now, I just bring to your attention that we have a new ordinance in town, no tents on the beach. This is going to be on the boardwalk. It seems to me that if we pass an ordinance that people can't use a tent on the beach, how can we go and give one of our concessionaires a tent on the boardwalk? So I kind of have a problem with that, especially one of the problems with having tents on the beach is it blocks people's views of the beach. So I'm thinking that if we put a tent up on the deck of the 10th Avenue Pavilion, it might block the view of the people who live across the street. Besides the fact that, you know, we have the ordinance of no tents. What I also see down the road, if we put a tent on the 10th Avenue Pavilion, I could see someone saying, hey, I want a private activity there for a birthday party or a family reunion, and maybe with a DJ or something like that. So I think that's where the next step is.
Do we know the height at the highest point of the tent?
They did submit specs. I don't have them in front of me right now. It is a pretty standard event tent.
Yes, so this is, that addendum of the 10th Avenue Pavilion arises from litigation, you're all aware of, that the 10th Avenue freeze-out filed against the borough as a result of originally the cancellation or arguable cancellation of the lease at supposed Sandy with the trailer and the issue that we resolved last year.
Can you explain that a little further? I mean, I'm aware of it, but
Long
maybe
story
people out in
short,
the audience
the tenant, who was 10th Avenue Freeze has filed litigation against the borough, basically interpreting leases differently than the administration and the borough interprets them in terms of what they're allowed to do, when they're allowed to be open. You can see there's 4 provisions in there particularly. One deals with hours of operation, which is an issue in the litigation. We have a mediation scheduled for June 26th. With the tenant in that litigation. This was these lease amendments pertaining to that in advance of that. Long story short, you know, we have a disagreement with the tenant about what they're allowed to do there. The I described it as a tent in that addendum because I wanted to be clear that it's not a canopy that was authorized or an awning that was authorized, as can be authorized under your ordinance. They're required to remove that tent by November 1st, and the genesis of this entire modification is that they're open for business now in advance of that mediation in a week, which we may not resolve the case until weeks after that. The season will be over, and we're essentially arguing with them over what they're allowed to put on the building, and they've had all kinds of crazy plans, I guess is the way to describe it. This was basically a compromise that Colleen and I reached with them, that they can have the tent for 1 year, so they have a shaded area for their patrons, has to be removed by Halloween. And next year, basically, we're going to work out on Tuesday, on the 26th, what the permanent solution is there in terms of awning or canopy that's permitted under the ordinance. In short, their position in the litigation is that the borough has frustrated their efforts to open their business and that they believe they're still permitted to have the trailer out on the street like they did after Sandy. The borough's position is that the trailer is not allowed, it's a temporary accommodation, and the borough's position is further that they must comply with the canopy and awnings ordinance that you all passed last year for whatever they do on the building on the beach. That's why it's described as a tent. Colleen and I, our opinion is that it is a tent. The litigants have determined that it's a canopy. And so that legal determination will be made ultimately in court. Hopefully we can agree on something that's more reasonable and in line with the ordinance on the 26th. But in the interim, to not hurt their business and to make sure that they can operate out there, and moreover, if they win the lawsuit, that we didn't damage them further by not having people out there or damage their business in some way, which is part of their claim. We agreed to allow them to have a temporary structure and submitted that for your approval tonight. Then two, there's specifications. Can't be drilled into the boardwalk. They had submitted a table layout, which I forwarded to you guys earlier today, and essentially comply with the compromise is essentially they have to comply with the outside eating area rules. So any kind of structures have to be clearly visible for pedestrians and all those sorts of safety considerations that are in your outdoor eating ordinance. And that's essentially the compromise position that we arrived to them with to bring to you for compromise for this season for them. And then we have, a significant longer period of time to figure out what the permanent solution is, and hopefully we arrive at that solution largely on Tuesday the 26th. So that's why it's described as a tent in there, because we would not agree to classify it as a canopy, which it's an argument, but they have an argument that it's a canopy and that they're entitled to have it. We are classifying it as a tent to make sure that it does not fall under the ordinance that banned tents and only allowed canopies under certain conditions, like for example at the 9th Avenue Pier, where you have nice canopies, anchored, permanent structures, have gone through zoning approval, all that sort of stuff to ensure that it's not blocking the ocean or anyone else's view.
When they bid on this last year, when they won the bid for the 10th Avenue concession, was there any mention of a canopy or tent being allowed?
There was a mention that they could apply and go through the same set of approvals that 9th Avenue Pier went through, which is applying to, I believe it's the planning board for that approval.
So they bid on the concession, and in there it said they could apply. It never said it was going to be.
No.
Well,
And
the
what
lease
happened,
specifically says that all alterations to the leased premises shall be conducted with the landlord's written consent. That's what it says verbatim.
and so when they made an inquiry about some canopy, we encouraged them to follow the process and do a site plan application. What came through on that was the tent, which is what landed us here now.
In litigation.
Did they consider at all just putting umbrellas above each table?
I've made that suggestion.
I'll just get a bit of a cut to the bottom line. Look, these people are business owners, they don't live in town, they only live in the state for half the year. They are here to make money, and it is a lot cheaper to buy a tent than it is to buy a canopy. And apparently it's cheaper to hire a lawyer than it is to build a canopy. So we are currently arguing with them about that. I've been arguing with them about it for 7 months, Colleen. And what we don't want to do is, if they beat us in court, have to pay them more money because they didn't have a shade structure out there. So we had a meeting here before the mediation and before we try to wrap up that litigation to come up to some temporary accommodations that cut off the damages in the lawsuit. So you're operating, you have a tent, you have tables, but we got to figure it out by the end of the year. That was essentially.
And they wouldn't consider umbrellas, which do just the same amount of shade.
Councilwoman Nicolay, for some period of time, they wouldn't consider anything.
But the tent, canopy, anything wasn't part of their lease in the beginning, so.
Well,
That they
you know,
would have to, I mean, we never agreed to any covered outdoor dining space for them in the lease.
well, you have, you know, awnings and canopies ordinance. Essentially, it's an argument. If the landlord's being unreasonable withholding written consent, then they can win the lawsuit.
Yeah.
If
Any
we're
bus-
being
any business
reasonable,
can-
which would really be following the awnings and canopies ordinance that I spent 2-3 months writing last year, and you guys passed after going through it with a fine-tooth comb, you know, that's the avenue by which we had expected everyone to follow it. In fact, other people did. And if they had done that, we had some really good ideas on that, but that's a lot more expensive than renting a tent. So we reached an impasse in about, what did you say, March?
Yeah.
March, and then, you know, we're litigating with them since, and we're getting into the season, and the last thing I want to see is us have to pay money over this debacle. So the temporary solution was to allow them to have what and they're agreeing is a tent that is temporary in nature under the lease terms, and then must comply. Hopefully on the 26th, we'll be able to wrap all this up. I have to say that the relationship at the last meeting was far better,
Yes.
you know, but they're also losing money by the minute, so who knows, in September that might change. That's why the mediation is June 26th.
Hypothetically, if this does not pass, what does that do with our position in litigation?
It doubles the ante. So if you lose, you're going to have to pay more money. If you win, then you wouldn't pay any money. But this was, you know, I've done landlord-tenant law now for about 7 years. You know, they're small business owners. They have kids that undoubtedly will be sitting in the courtroom. You know, I can't guarantee that you're going to win or lose. So, you know, it's my job to protect the pocketbook and the liability of the borough. And Colleen's job as well. We sat down with them, and this was a solution that essentially stops them. Sorry. I wish I had that effect in court. Stops us accruing damages in the lawsuit, so that their damages, to the extent they do win, are finite. Because what argument can you make that where you're open for business, you got basically everything you wanted. Now we're really talking about the past, whether you're supposed to have the trailer or not have the trailer. And we're talking about, you know, them opening for business last year. And you see that it's accompanied by an amendment to the Fifth Avenue lease. And I'll just flesh this out to public information. Our position in the lawsuit is that these leases were signed, as you can see, within 8 days of each other. The people who rented Fifth Avenue Pavilion had no problem whatsoever getting approvals, permits, anything they needed. Their construction people were out there, and they were open for business by the beginning of last season. You know, the 10th Avenue Pier at Freezout was not open last year, as you all know. That's the subject of the lawsuit. The lawsuit's about the trailer, whether they're entitled to have it or still have it for that matter. And the, you know, the time they weren't open last year. It's the borough's position, and if you match the timelines up for the 5th Avenue versus the 10th Avenue pavilions, you can see the disparity as their applications and permits get farther and farther apart, and the other people are open for business by Memorial Day. That's basically our argument in the lawsuit, but you know, I can't never guarantee you that they won't be sympathetic, you won't win, it's a jury trial. So if it's determined that we did do something to frustrate them from open last year, and then continued it into this year by not allowing them certain provisions of the lease that were unreasonable, our damages continue to potentially accrue, whereas this temporary compromise at least ends the damages from accruing to the extent there are any if we don't win. And that's essentially the genesis of those. And
So
because we want to cheat everyone, I'm sorry.
Not having a tent is going to accrue damages to them? I mean, they have tables out
They have
there.
to prove that.
But
Well, they have to prove that we
the tent
unreasonably
would make the
withheld our
difference.
consent. So the lease provides, like I said before, that our consent is required.
They have outside dining.
Yes.
They have umbrellas. I mean, and a tent is going to make that much of a difference. I think this thing should be in a settlement conference on the 26th.
That is, look, we presented for your approval. If you would like me to go back and you want to hold this till the next meeting, I don't have a problem with going to
I mean, if this was
the,
part of the whole settlement and this come about and we were gonna absolutely settle everything, yeah, then I might look at it differently. But to say that the tent is hurting, without having the tent, which is not in their lease, is hurting their business when they have all the tables and everything right out there. You know, we can't control the weather, and they know that by having, signing the lease that they did. So
I think that's a perfectly reasonable position to take. It's my job to present you with the safest option. If you guys are inclined to allow Holly and I to go to the mediation, and not approve that, and, you have X amount of damages between then and today, assuming we settle it then or the next meeting. If you guys are willing to, incur that risk to provide us with additional leverage, I don't particularly have a problem with that. I just laid out for you what the factors in the case are, and your point is well taken, Councilman.
I don't feel like we should ever, I don't feel like we should be forced into giving them a tent just because they think there's going to be damages without it. And I have another, I guess a discrepancy I notice here with paragraph 2 of this resolution. At no time shall the tenant be permitted to remove the tent covering and leave the bare frame components visible, which I agree with, but then in Exhibit A, in their proposal, they say the framework is composed of 2-inch aluminum pipes and would remain throughout the year.
No, we would not permit that.
Okay, so we would just,
No.
that would have to be amended in Exhibit A.
How would that affect our warranty on the boardwalk?
It was a large concern that I had from the outset in terms of both how to secure such a large tent to the boardwalk. I certainly wouldn't want it drilled into our girders. The model that they provided was a strapping method, which would go through the decking and strap onto the girders. But as all of you know, and you've been down on Ocean Avenue in a good nor'easter, I'm
There's a
concerned.
thunderstorm.
Yes.
It's a thunderstorm.
Definitely there's weather concerns relating to having a tent down there at all. So I think it could be safely adhered without undermining the structure of the boardwalk. However, tent versus nor'easter, I don't think it's hard to imagine how that would end up.
So Greg, as our attorney, I want to make it clear, what do you think is, if we turn this down, does it make it, put the town more,
Puts you at slightly greater risk.
puts us at greater risk?
Yes.
If we table it,
It also
like
provides
you
us with significantly more leverage when we go on Tuesday.
say that again?
It also provides us with significantly more leverage when we go into the room when we come today.
I think you're tabling it, lets us go into that.
So it
mediation.
becomes a negotiating point again.
So if we table it, it gives you stronger,
Correct. But I don't take leverage from you without the knowledge of the risk.
But in your
That's why I got the
professional,
safest thing in front of you.
but in your professional opinion, putting this together, you're saying, to me, it seems as though this is what you're highly suggesting.
Look, that would be the safest route to take. If you, you'd be surprised how much money you can make selling Italian ices at, I've seen the tax returns. So a week is not a significant amount of money in terms of damages in the case. But it's also, not such an enormous amount of money that, the leverage is easily given up. So it's up to you. You guys got elected to make the tough decisions on risk. I don't think that this is going to lose the case or win the case one way or another. But my job is to present you the safest option. The risk is you incur another week of damages. We can settle the case on Tuesday. The downside is that by the time you get to approve it again, it'll be another week. So you have 2 weeks of summertime potential revenue damages versus the leverage of going in there with another negotiating point and perhaps ending up with no tent at all. So that choice, of course, is yours.
Jen, what do you think?
I'm just more comfortable by following your suggestions and your leads, both Colleen and Greg. I don't think visibly that it's much of a big deal, because if you've got umbrellas up, it's taking up the same space. I don't know visually how it's laid out or how high the tent is, but.
It's approximately 12 feet. at the center. It's 20 by 30 tent that you rent for, essentially, it's a heavy duty, not like you rent for that environmental. It's heavier duty than that, essentially it's the same.
But I think
And that's where the rubber meets, and just to be clear, that's where the rubber has met the road in this case, like throughout, is, we've sent them down to the 9th Avenue Pier. You can see the difference between something you rent to put in your yard and the 9th Avenue superstructure that's in the concrete out there. That's where, but what does that mean when you write it down on a piece of paper, right? That's where the rubber meets the road in this case, is what does that mean? And what is reasonable, and that's why we have courts to decide.
Mark, how you feel? Mark Boltzmann.
I don't see where the tent would cause the more damages one way or the other. All the beachfront concessions are based on weather. Even if you have a tent, I don't see the difference in tables. They have the tables out there, they have the lease, they're operating, and I think this is part of the leverage for settlement conference to get the whole package wrapped up, and let's get rid of the lawsuit. So that's my opinion. I don't think it should even be on.
Mark?
I wouldn't approve a tent even if this was my best friend who wanted to set up a beachfront area. I mean, this is,
So really, do we want to table it, or do we want to vote on it tonight?
well, I definitely don't want to approve for Fifth Avenue Pavilion, Taylor Pavilion.
can I explain you're saying that you just don't visibly, you wouldn't want it?
I think visibly we have a lot of objections to it. I think a lot of residents in that area, I mean, we had objections to Taylor Pavilion when that was being built, because people thought it would obstruct the view. And I think people don't want to see a tent that's going to be, even 9th Ave Pier, when they take the tent down, there's still the permanent structure that's there. And it really doesn't look that nice. Now, it's on the marina side, so it's not really obstructing a lot of people's views, but I just think this is, I don't think it's the right direction. I think they have their space. Both tenants in the pavilions have their space. They knew what they were getting when they signed the lease. They shouldn't be expecting so much more.
So do you want to vote on it tonight, or table it?
I would like to vote on it. I know it puts us at risk, but I mean,
I'd like to table and see what Greg can come up
If-
with. I mean, if it settles the
if I
whole
could s-
lawsuit based on the tent, and we can get rid of it, and I would allow it to be there. But I think we should table it tonight, and let's see what Greg can do with it.
My suggestion is if we table it tonight, let Greg and I proceed to mediation. We'll come back to you, because the tent is only one part of these modifications. Some of them.
One part of it.
One part of many. And so if obviously the crystallization of the conversation tonight is on the tent, and we'll see how we do. We'll come back to you with a report and present addendums at that time that we feel are appropriate and in line with both the negotiations and with council's wishes.
But any business, like it said, when they got this, it said that they could go from the planning board.
Yes.
Any business can go, like Federico's, they got a canopy. So they had the right to do that.
And they still do, and that speaks to Councilman Levis's point when he talks about the 9th Avenue Pier. The planning and zoning process provides an opportunity for business owners, whether on public land or private land, to come forward and have a public hearing that is publicly noticed so that people who are impacted by their actions have an opportunity to speak and be heard. This tent doesn't fall within that process, which is how we ended up here before you tonight. So again, lots of great feedback from all of you. They still have access to that legal process. They could pursue a zoning board, a planning board application.
So Jen, would you want to table or vote on it tonight?
I don't think much would change, or am I wrong, if we table it?
My only preference on tabling versus voting on it up or down right now is that there are a lot of other provisions in here that do have legitimate need to get cleaned up. So we can just come back with those.
Yeah.
That's why I think tabling it might give us the opportunity to further work on it.
And I personally wouldn't mind seeing more of the specifications, what houses or how many across the street, kind of, more of those.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to table this resolution until we hear back from your discussion on Tuesday. Do I have a second? Second.
Councilman Nicolai?
Yes.
Mayor McGovern?
Yes.
Councilman Oscar?
Yes.
Councilman Levis?
no.
Okay, next, I make a motion that the resolution authorizing issuance of a plenary retail consumption license for JOBIL Incorporated trading as Jack's Tavern for a period ending June 30th, 2019. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Rico?
Yes.
Mayor Melvin?
Yes.
Councilman Osborne?
Yes.
Councilman Levin?
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda. All matters listed in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Borough Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, then that item will be removed from the consent agenda and we'll consider that separately. So, I have a motion for the resolutions by the consent agenda.
Second.
Second?
Councilman Rico?
Yes.
Mayor Melvin?
Yes.
Councilman Osborne?
Just one thing on the bill list. Colleen, can you explain the $10,000 for the music at the pavilion?
Sure, that's the Levin-Bill Band, I believe is the name of the vendor, and it's a very long-standing recreation program for senior dancing. They play a series of concerts every Monday night at the Taylor Pavilion, and it gets, I'm sorry, it's not dancing, it's concerts. We have so much going on this summer, it's easy for me to confuse them, but they're really wonderful concerts that take place every Monday night at the Taylor Pavilion and open to the public.
It's still only 10,000, because when I took over recreation, like 1979, it was about $10,000.
As Robin's presentation showed, we do a pretty good job of holding the line.
Wow.
So,
And that's for the whole,
that's for the series, and it's paid through the Recreation Department.
Yes.
Councilman Levin?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to ordinances. First reading and introduction, ordinance 2018-8, the revised ordinance of the Borough of Belmar, amending the revised general ordinance, chapter 19, traffic, to clarify certain parking restrictions. Do I have a motion? Oh, that's just first reading.
First reading.
Okay,
Motion to introduce?
that was a motion to introduce it, okay. Next,
No, sorry, is there a second?
second.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Melvin?
Yes.
Councilman Osborne?
Yes.
Councilman Levin?
Yes.
Okay, then a motion for the second reading and public hearing for the passage of ordinance number 2018-10, an ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 40 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Belmar, section 40-3.14 fees. Do I have a second?
This is the public hearing first.
Okay, is there anybody out in the audience that wants to talk on this?
What's this one? I'm sorry.
So this is to amend our ordinances to increase the fee for applicants who wish to have a special meeting of, okay.
Okay, so I make a motion to close the public portion for ordinance 2018-10. Aye. Now I make a motion to pass ordinance number 2018-10.
Second.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Melvin?
Yes.
Councilman Osborne?
Yes.
Councilman Levin?
Yes.
Okay, second reading and public hearing on ordinance number 2018-11, an ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 19 traffic, one-way streets. I make a motion to open the public portion for this ordinance. Seeing none, I make a motion to close the public portion for the second reading of the public hearing, ordinance number 2018-11. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Now I make a motion to pass ordinance number 2018-11, an ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 19 traffic, one-way streets. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Melvin?
Yes.
Councilman Osborne?
Yes.
Councilman Levin?
Yes.
Now we come to the public session of the meeting. Just please come up to the microphones, state your name, your address, and see if we can help you out. If we can't, we'll try and get back to you.
Good evening, Katrina Klapsis, 1304 B Street. I have a couple questions actually. On behalf of the DeSanctis family, I know there's the situation with the plaque ordinance resolution. Could somebody just explain how someone would go about, like what is the protocol to get a plaque? and the fact that Joy's tree is already planted, is that going to be a problem for the DeSantis family?
Let me answer that. And I don't want to get personal, but I don't think we finalized how to go about it. But I'm just as affected as the DeSantis family, because believe it or not, about 10 years ago, when my brother passed away, we had a memorial tree put down at his tree with a plaque. So last year, when we had the brouhaha with the DeSantis tree, I had to remove my brother's plaque that was there for almost 10 years. So I'm very anxious to get my brother's memorial back. And I'm not a hypocrite, so if I can get my brother's memorial back, I'm gonna have to let Joy, and I think it was one of the shade trees, planned to get trees planted around the playground down there and at McCleary Park, and have memorials placed at different trees. We're gonna have to limit the size of some of these memorials, because some people would want gardens. Other people would just want a little sign or something like that. Since Joy's tree is already planted, I see no reason to move it. And, you know, I personally would think that it would, a memorial would go there where it was planted, because there's no way we're gonna move my brother's tree either. So, you know, if I'm gonna get my brother's plaque back, I'm gonna have to put it back to where the tree is. The tree's not moving.
Okay, so is there, I just would like to know if there's a plan of action of some sort, and who would have to be contacted? How would we go about it, is my basic point.
Maybe could explain the process.
Well, and certainly as I referenced earlier this evening when Councilman Walsh first about it, Mike and I are formulating the map where the memorials would go. At our last two meetings, we talked about essentially grandfathering in some pre-existing memorials into that map. We'll bring it back to council for that approval, and then the program would be opened, and if there's any previously grandfathered in memorials, they would be contacted by the borough office.
Right. But to further on that, when Carmine contacted me last year, I selected a spot on Silver Lake that could benefit from having a tree planted there. So I worked with Carmine at a good spot. But we really can't have the public just saying, I want a tree planted at B Street or C Street. In other words, so we're going to have this Shade Tree Commission decide where the trees go, what trees are going to be. And then once we plant the trees, someone can apply for,
Right, so the application would be at Borough Hall. There would be somebody at Borough
probably, but
Hall.
it's not been finalized yet. Now, I know Spring Lake has a similar thing, and they charge $1,000. That's a lot of money. Some people said, well, you know, we don't want to lose money on planting a tree. I know a tree of Mr. DeSantis's would probably cost Carmine about $125, $150.
$350, but who's counting? And it didn't cost him, it cost his daughter's sorority sisters. But I just really, I'm not here to bust anybody's chops. I was just wanting to know what the process is going to be so that they can move forward. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, we're not going to have the public, because we don't want Silver Lake to look, or McCleary Park, looking like a forest. So we may have to limit, you know, once we get a certain amount of trees around the playground or McCleary Park, we may have to say, that's it. Would you like a bench instead? You know?
Okay, so.
Or select, sorry, Katrina.
That's all right.
What came to my mind is maybe a tree that's already planted, already growing at the park. And saying, we don't have any more new trees to plant, but we have this nice little tree over here that's doing really well. Would you like to?
Right, there's a lot of new trees planted by Silver Lake. I noticed today there was quite a few nice newer trees.
The street tree, but they're planted by the Shade Tree Commission,
Right.
yeah, and they're doing really well.
Right.
And they've got water today, right there, Mike?
Yes, they
They
did.
did, you know,
Okay.
water helps.
So just, again, just, is there like a timeline that we're working at that
Well-
possibly, so we know, will you announce it? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but I think
You will.
what I heard Colleen say, will Carmine be notified?
Well, this would be a terrible time of the year to plant a tree.
I'm not talking about the planting, Mayor,
Yeah.
I'm talking about specifically for the DeSantis Memorial. The tree's already there. I'm just asking about the memorial plaque, that's
You
all.
might have to wait, because we haven't decided the size of the memorials or anything like that.
Sorry, again, our
Okay.
plan is to come back to you hopefully by your
Yeah.
next meeting with our recommendations.
Yeah, great, yeah.
Okay,
So we'll
at
work-
the next meeting, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that in the beginning,
So
I'm
at the
sorry.
last meeting, we authorized the borough administrator to formalize the plan.
Right.
And then she'll come back and
Yeah.
talk.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I was wondering where the process was. I'm sorry, I wasn't at the last meeting and I didn't hear that
Yeah.
beginning conversation.
But, yeah, obviously, if she's gonna have a memorial tree, it would have to be there. And I would probably limit a family to one tree. We wouldn't want, say, a grove of trees.
Well, Brian, I don't want to get into a little tussle here, but your wife is a lovely woman, but she has a garden and a gigantic playground dedicated to her too. So, I mean, that's something, again, I'm not trying to bust your chops, I'm just saying that that's kind of like something that
Yeah,
you can consider while you think
It does,
about
I
this.
appreciate it. It puts me kind of in an awkward position, but, when the butterfly, I did not recommend that be the Jane McGovern Butterfly Garden. That came about through other people. And it was a surprise from the council that the playground was going to be named after her. And
Right,
I
which is a
just
beautiful
feel,
thing.
and I don't want to say no.
That's a beautiful thing. I'm not disclaiming that. That's a lovely thing. I'm
Right.
not
I
saying
agree.
anything about it. Okay, so, all right, so it'll come up in the next meeting or so or whatever,
Right,
so
right.
I'll listen to that. And now I just have one more thing, and again, I know I'm always up here, everybody says I complain all the time, and maybe I do, I don't know. But there's a rumor that there is a lawsuit that landed in Borough Hall over the lifeguard hiring or firing. And I'd just like to know if that's true or not. I don't want to discuss it, but I was just wondering if somebody.
Notice of tort claim.
You have a lawsuit.
There's a notice of tort claim, okay, about the management, the lawsuit
So
management.
there's a state law.
Mhm.
You intend to file a lawsuit against a public entity, you must, within 90 days of your knowledge of your accruing damages, file what's called a tort claim notice.
Mhm.
It preserves your right to sue. Once you file that notice, you must wait 6 months, or 180 days under the statute before you actually file a lawsuit.
Okay,
That allows public entities to evaluate claims and then sometimes settle them, sometimes it gives the government time to figure it out before everyone starts spending
Okay.
legal fees and public money on legal fees. So at this point in that process, a tort claim notice was received, but not a lawsuit per se.
Per se,
It's
so-
notice of a potential lawsuit.
right, so, and they have, it won't be, if they decide to or whatever, it wouldn't be for 6 months till they could
Correct.
actually do
Precisely.
the suit. Okay, all right, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, you're closer.
How are you? Tom Carvelli, 609 15th Ave. I reached out to my police block rep and made a request. And his response was to come before the council and talk about it here. My request was that we have greater police presence on 15th Ave on what I'll call bar nights, Tuesday night, Friday night, Saturday. And so that's my request, that's why I'm here. And bottom line is, the disruption's just gotten out of control. Between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., it's just mayhem down there. Between Bar A, Paul's, Boathouse, just, there's no, it's just crazy. As far as yelling, screaming, especially as bars let in and out. I'm not really seeing a significant amount of enforcement.
Well, I'm sure probably at that time, we're pretty well spread out with all the bars closing at 2 o'clock. And we just had so many police. I'm sure the neighborhood at the ocean, the neighborhood around 8th Avenue, they probably all have similar complaints. You know, they would everyone would probably like more police supervision at that time, but Tommy.
I'll communicate with the police department, obviously, and they do increase patrols, specifically around bar closing times, but the disturbances to the neighborhood is real. As evidenced by the council's direction, you attach the necessary shush patrols on liquor licenses and try to do things to supplement our police force. But I will talk with the chief again.
Okay. Mark, you were a policeman can you kind of address this?
When I was a policeman, we didn't have Lake Como, so now the spreading out around that area is now spreading our officers into Lake Como, so I'm not really sure. I mean, we always put extra patrols on those nights, trying to keep, officers in the blocks, but like Tom is saying, now it's been increasing, correct? Is that what you're trying to say, more than the last year?
Yeah, I mean, the summer months especially, obviously, with the winter months, you have the windows closed, and obviously there's not that much traffic, but, with the summer rolling in and, the long, cold winter, people have just lost their minds, right? And,
Tuesday night is after.
yeah. So look, I mean, the thing is for a resident, now a couple things. One thing is I get up at 4:15 on Wednesday morning. Okay, so there are times when it's 2:30, 2:45 in the morning, and I'm still getting woken up. So that really puts a hamper on the day. That number one there. Number two is, we have this quote unquote zero tolerance policy, and I see police officers patrolling, walking up and down the street, riding their bikes, and there are kids hooting and hollering, just leaving the bar, and they are not zero tolerance anything. And, I'd love to see, just somebody writing a bunch of tickets and making it not a friendly place where the next time they walk down that street, a point has been made. That's the sort of thing that I'm thinking. The other thing is that, I'm not 100% convinced that the shush patrol is effective. I mean, they have no authority. A, I don't see them out there, that's the first thing. But B, what can they do? They can't, the only thing they can do is tell somebody to shush, right? And then the kids laugh at them and keep going, right? There's nothing effective. I heard earlier where the Marina Grill pays for extra police. Why is that not something that can be attached to the bars, where the bars have to pay for?
No, Bar A is already, Bar A pays for 6 officers.
So does siege cases.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they stationed at Bar A, or are they out into the neighborhoods where?
Those officers are probably more Bar A.
Yeah, they're there for.
And you need a wider presence in the neighborhoods.
Probably talk to the chief about that, or if Bar A or DJs pays for the police, our chiefs can still tell those police where to stand, or they have to, they're kind of restricted to the premises of the bar.
We'll have some conversations.
Well, look, every time they're digging up a hole in the middle of the street, there's a police officer there, right, with a car. Who's paying for that? That's being paid by whoever's digging the hole, right? So why is that? Is that not something that's an option? I'm sure a couple bar owners aren't feel like me for saying this.
It's a confluence of a lot of different things.
There's a lot,
You have union obligations of what posted in the contract, you have bar owners' rights under their temporary liquor license, you have financial considerations based on what the borough can collect, cannot collect, service fees for. We don't have a private police force per se. It's a confluence of a lot of different regulations. I wish it was as easy as just sending the neighborhood, but unfortunately, with all the lawyers in the world, it's not.
Yeah, well, it's keeping me up at night.
Thank you.
So, all right, thank you very much.
Yes.
Sandy Caputo, Surf Avenue. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to discuss football playing on the beach again. During beach badge hours, frisbees, soccer balls, and kite flying. And again, it's not just the ball, it's the 200-pound guy chasing the ball, looking up in the sky while he's running, not looking down where he's running, trying to catch a ball. It's often impossible to relax on the beach because you have to keep watching out for these folks, watching out for the ball and watching out for the fellas running. Years ago, this was never allowed. And anyone that was a lifeguard back then knows there was never a football flying. You're here, I know, Bruce is not here, but I know you were a lifeguard back then. We have great lifeguards. This is nothing against them. Our lifeguards are great, but no one has ever told them that they have to watch out for this. And back when this was really enforced, these guys weren't even born yet. I suggested last year that the council members take a walk on the beach on a busy day. I don't know if anyone did that, on maybe start at 10th and walk up to 18th. You'll be able to see this. Several games going on at the same time. Football, soccer balls, frisbees, everybody running. Kites are dangerous too. The kite dives down onto you while you're sitting on the beach. And again, someone's running, not watching where they're going. I know I've been up here before. I can't imagine. I don't know why we keep allowing this. It's very dangerous. And I'm just going to end
Sandy,
with...
I don't think we allow it. Sometimes the concentration of lifeguards is to the people in the water. And I'm going to plead guilty to the fact that sometimes I'm watching people in the water swimming that, because there's currents and stuff like that, and all of a sudden Howard Rowland would come down and say, knock off that football, and it's right in front of me, and I'd say, because I was so focused with swimmers in the water. But most of the time, the ball playing is in the back of the beach, where even Howard allowed them to go, and as long as they didn't interfere with the people. But I agree that sometimes they present a problem, especially with little children and women around the way they play. And the lifeguards should be able to tell them to knock it off. Because I think most people believe the lifeguards have police powers, but they don't. So, like a beach police would probably have to get involved if there was a confrontation between the lifeguard and the football thrower.
Well, there's no confrontation because the lifeguards haven't been told to stop this. And you can see the football flying right in front of them.
They know. If it's happening right in front of them, I'm sure it's the same situation I did. Sometimes they're so focused on the rip currents and people in there that your mind just goes right past that football.
You know what, I can understand that. I understand when you say that. But there was a time it was never allowed, and nobody was drowning because the lifeguards were blowing the whistle on the football.
Right. We'll make a stronger attempt to the new lifeguard supervisor to reinforce with the lifeguards that if they see the football being thrown, to go down and tell them to stop. Most people will. Some people will, alcohol being involved, will give you an argument, and there's ways to handle it, but the best way is to get one of the beach cops to come over and.
I think one word from the lifeguard would be all that anyone would need. But I don't see it happening.
Sometimes that's not the case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Sandra Alfier, 115 12th Avenue.
First, I want to say that we do appreciate the specials that do walk the street. They do the best they can with what they are told. I'm going to start with, I have 2 stories to tell. I'll make them short and sweet. Saturday morning, well, first of all, I'm on a one-way. We're on the corner of 12th and A. The amount of traffic that turns down one way the wrong way with no regard, zip through to 13th, turning the wrong way on 13th is unbelievable. I would hope the signs, I'm hoping I can get signs that say do not enter. I would like to, talk to someone about that on the opposite side of the stop signs, thinking that maybe they would deter them. Saturday morning, as I'm coming east on 16th, which is now a one-way to the beach, made a left on a one-way north. As I approached the corner, a car whipped around the corner, down the one-way, just missing me and pulling into the parking spot, next to me. So I had to stop. I rolled my window down. There were 4 young adults in the car. I said, do you realize this is a one-way street? Yes, we do. We just live right over there. We're just going into the driveway. I said, but it's a one-way street. But we're not from around here. But you got a license, you passed the test, you know the road rules. It's a one-way street. Sorry, sorry, sorry. As I drove away, a police officer in a car was behind me. Yes. I'm watching the rearview mirror, went right by him. So I pulled over, I motioned to stop. He stopped, and I told him what happened in the back. There's no one back there. Yes, there is. Right in the spot I am, it's a white car facing the wrong direction. Oh, I do see that car. It's funny you say that, he said. I thought they were close to the corner. And I looked at him. I was appalled. I looked at him. I was like, are you serious? They're parked on the wrong way street, like the opposite way. I said, I would appreciate it if maybe you take a ride around if they're still there and do something about it. He said, he would do that. I left. I don't know what happened. Last night, I'm walking on the boardwalk. Bikes, skateboards. I know you have signs there. I know people aren't listening. But the specials are doing nothing. There's 2 girls in front of us walking with a little dog. I could not believe 2 officers no farther than this gentleman here, but they were engaged in a conversation with someone. I didn't know if it was police business or what. One was on the phone, and one was talking, and I gave them the benefit of the doubt. It was a little dog, it was dark. The girls stopped maybe by that carpet. The dog did his business. I looked, I said, I want to see what happens here. They're looking around, they have nothing to pick it up. So I'm watching, and I see her go down the ramp, and I'm thinking maybe she's going to go in the garbage and take something. She asked the officer for a piece of paper from his pad. Took it, as he gave it to her, walks up on the boardwalk, and cleans up. What's wrong with this picture?
I can't explain.
No. I couldn't, I was livid. I immediately went home, I went right online, I was trying to find Chief Heisman's number, email something. There's this form you fill out, I did that, and I shot him an email. I don't know if I'm gonna get anything back or whatever, but I decided to just come here and present. They need to know that the boardwalk needs to be watched. They are police officers in training. They should have a 6th sense. They should see these things out of the corner of their eyes. I shouldn't see them and watch. If I'm seeing it right in front of me, they have to see it. And they're walking, they're talking, they're probably tired, they've been walking around all day, the sights are beautiful. They need to do their job. So I would appreciate it if there was more presence and compliance with rules on the boardwalk.
We will
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tom Billberger, 1000 River Road. A few things. First, about the bicycles, that the people that presented made the presentation. I certainly hope you turn that down. Things are bad enough around here with traffic and everything. And they say they're self-insured and everything, but there is what's known as, what used to be called third-party case. And when there's an accident, everybody gets dragged in, and will be dragged in. There will be accidents with these bikes and everything. It's not a good idea. Right now, Tuesday night, we have, what do you call that? Beat the clock at Bar A. Now, they'll get off that train, and they'll think it's a good idea to take the bike down there, and then have however many drinks they can have, and then come back with the bike and get run down. Whatever. But I certainly hope you don't vote that in. But about the benches, it was mentioned benches at McCleary. We need more benches down there. I would say 4 more, 5 more placed, now this is the summer, so placed under the shade of the trees in the heat of the day, where a person would sit down there and read or whatever they'd like to do, rather out in the broiling sun. It doesn't take a lot to think that through. 3 or 4, maybe 5 more benches would be good. And the picnic tables are really loused up, really bad. We need more of them down there as well. Now, what these people, I'd like to just mention what these people are talking about. That the gentleman that spoke about he lives around Bar A and Main Street there, and the lady that spoke about the football on the beach and all of these things that are happening, the urination or defecation on the boardwalk. You're dressing, it's kind of late. This has been coming. You're yelling and carrying on. People are yelling and carrying, rightfully. Nobody likes to see this or listen to it at 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Nobody likes that. But it's late. It's late in the day to be yelling about it because this has been coming. And now here we are. And you give a guy a ticket or you take him in or whatever you do, it's not going to make a bit of difference because the next guy coming out of the boathouse or whatever, 2 nights later, is going to do the same thing. He's not going to worry about the guy that 2 days before got taken in or anything. He's not going to change. We're past the point. We've gone beyond. This is a social problem. It's not an enforcement problem. Well, it is now, but it's too late to be looking now. It should have been looked at 10, 15, 20 years ago when this stuff started. But everybody said, no, I don't care. Well, now they care. Now they care. And this will be the end, this meeting. It'll be more. So.
Unfortunately, I agree with you. Right.
Whatever.
Tom? Burke? Tom?
Tom Burke, 608 10th Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a concern I want to express, but I want to start off by saying a couple positive things. Sometimes that's necessary too. I happened to notice the last couple of days the new parking lot at the corner of 13th and Railroad. That was the result of the stipulation and planning board approval of the project on 10th Avenue, which I'm sure you're aware of, Brian. Providing 50 additional parking spaces, I think that close to the business center. Actually, anytime we provide extra parking, it's a positive thing for this town. And I think it's a positive thing, and we should all recognize it as such. I also noticed, and this was brought up a couple of weeks ago, I'm representing the Belmar Business Partnership, among other things here tonight. The presence of parking attendants or parking officers marking the cars on Main Street and giving, I presume, issuing summonses when necessary. I'm sure the business owners appreciate that, keeping people down to the proper length of time, keeping business owners from parking where they probably shouldn't be parking. It's it's a big help, and the business community appreciates it. I was also on the bicycle and pedestrian committee. Fred Brody was here tonight earlier. I worked with Fred when I was on the Monmouth County Transportation Council. He's a good man. I know if he supports that bicycle project, and that it's probably a good idea. It certainly would help alleviate some of the congestion we have. I think getting more people to bike will help the whole town. It will help us solve this parking problem, and presumably will make things safer. Comments were made earlier also about the community center. I participate. I was one of those who raised my hand. I participate. I'm down there quite frequently. Like the free coffee. I paid for it though, so it's, you know. But one thing.
You paid for free coffee?
Yeah.
You got.
They charge a membership fee, so my coffee that's free is not really free because it costs me. But one thing I would like to see is, you know, seniors ride bicycles too. I ride a bike. There is a limited amount of parking around the community center. So to me, it would make sense if we put a bicycle rack down there.
Okay.
I know I would ride my bicycle. I know 3 or 4 other people who go there who would ride their bikes. Right now, there's no place to put it. You can't lock it up safely. You know the situation. Now, last Saturday night, I attended a ball game in New York and had dinner in New York. And when I go to New York to ball games, I usually park my car in Long Branch and take the train up and come back to Long Branch because there's better connections. So about 10 o'clock last Saturday night, I'm driving back along the beachfront from Long Branch to Belmar, and I crossed the bridge into Belmar. An awful lot of people along the new Strollers place, a lot of activity, people walking. But as soon as I passed there, I was amazed at how dark and how dungeony it looked along the main street from there all the way up to 10th Avenue. It was like the town was shut down. There were people walking around, but there's no light. And I know we have the new street lights, and I know that there are issues. You know, people both saying this, people saying that, people pointing that. There's things to be worked out. But I really think it would be important for the council to work out the problem so that we can get the street lights lit from 10th Avenue down to 5th Avenue. It's good for pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, and it will be good for the businesses. And I know that there's issues, and you know, I understand the issues, but I think perhaps we need to become a little bit more proactive in resolving the issue.
I don't think we have good news about having them lit for this summer, right? But in order to get those lights on, the JCP&L has got to come through now and raise the electric lines. Or else there's a dangerous situation of putting those lights so close to live power lines. So the amount of work it's going to take to raise all the electric lines from 5th Avenue down to 10th Avenue is going to take JCP&L, I think at least 2 weeks to do, and they've got to get it on their schedule. They're not going to be able to do it for this summer. So you bring up a problem that we're aware of, that we're caught between a rock and a hard place. We're not going to be able to solve it. There's, as you said, there are issues, right, Kyle?
Yes,
You might wanna-
and again, it's not good news, but to the extent where this is discussed seriously daily, as recently as a few hours ago, we have an extensive meeting on this. It's very high on the radar. We're trying to get it resolved. Mr. Cannon is joining the conversations. So we are doing all the right things to try to move this forward to a resolution because it needs to come to a resolution.
Yeah, I was at a meeting with Senator Gopal and Mr. Cannon, myself, and our engineering, the head of our engineering, and trying to get it resolved. Looks like we moved a step forward, but it hasn't gone any further. Greg, I mean, we had a good meeting.
Senator Gopal agreed to reach out to GCP and the governor's office, trying to get them to move a little faster to get us on the schedule, which is very, we haven't seen a ton of results yet, but.
It does get touched daily, and we're trying to make progress.
Yeah, it's a lot of agita. We're aware of it. And Your complaint coming up here is probably good, because we can bring it back to the group that we feel is most responsible for having no lights down there and saying, hey, the public is really starting to
Not only
be
public,
aware.
the business owners along that stretch, you can't,
Yeah.
how we expect them to be open in the evenings if can't be seen.
This helps us that you're bringing it to attention at a council meeting, because we can turn around and bring it to the person that we feel is most involved and say, look at what you're doing to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's two roses.
Oh, mine is, I'm first.
Here's
Sure,
the
Maria
beautiful lady.
Florio, 115 12th Avenue. Can you tell me why we don't have an officer sitting here, that we cannot get the questions to him, that you have to relate to Colleen?
Tom was here earlier,
Early, but
so,
shouldn't we have someone here to
well,
answer?
what happened was he probably got buzzed out.
He did.
He got a call. So we would like him to be at the council meeting, but sometimes a priority, and he's probably doing something
No,
right
I'm
now.
going to go for that. There should be another one there to answer our questions.
Well, today is Tuesday night, and it was alluded to, was beat the clock night,
right
and
there, we
I
have
have a
something.
feeling, even though I haven't left this spot right here, that it might be something involving bar participation at beat the clock.
So they come first, and we have,
Well, obviously there might be something more serious yet,
absolutely.
What do we have, we thrown out?
I
So
bet
is
you
the only
though,
one to take care of that?
what's that?
Can we have another one here? I mean, is everybody at RA and DJs?
Well, our police force is just so big, and it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There may not be anyone in the back. Well, you know what, Mark? You can probably answer this. Is there sometimes where there's nobody in the back, or?
Yes, there's a lot of times in the back.
Thank you, that makes me feel good that if I call, there's not a policeman back
No, they
there.
would come
Be a
in.
dispatcher there.
Thank
Whatever you need.
you. Have a good night.
Rose?
Rose DeGagnon, 201 9th Avenue. I have a concern about I know we call it redevelopment in this town, but I find it to be overdevelopment. And there's buildings going up, 5 stories, different, I feel like it's overdevelopment. And I spoke to Mayor McGovern, and I said, where do I go? I want to get involved. I don't agree with this. I don't know if I'm the only person that feels this way. I will pursue and find other people to see, but I'm very upset. I'm very upset. I moved here in 1979. It was a small town. I understand, Brian, you said you can't stay still all the time, but we're just exploding now with condos and, retail on the bottom and building. You represent us. So if we don't want this, what do we do? How do we meet with you? I'm asking because I don't know.
Well, next week, I think it's next week, they have the Board of Adjustment meeting for development that's going on down at 12th Avenue, which is for the Board of Adjustment to decide. I know some people want the members of the council to give an opinion beforehand, but we've been told that it's best for us to let the Board of Adjustment people listen to the issues and vote on it without being influenced unnecessarily by the council.
I think you all need to say something. You represent
Yeah, we disagree.
You can't legally, because
Maybe I can explain.
That's
Yeah.
illegal.
All right, so there's two types of development and redevelopment. So you have development that comes before the council in redevelopment areas, and there, they basically decide. And there's a limited number of those, but anyone else who wants to develop property has to go to the land use boards, the planning board or zoning board, depending on this, for example, the condos you mentioned, they're too tall, that violates a zoning ordinance, they need a variance to get that. So the answer to your question is to bring all your neighbors or other people that are concerned about that and go to the land use boards and speak. They have public hearings about whether that height restriction is appropriate for the neighborhood. Someone who's lived there for 40 years, certainly can speak to that, and that testimony all goes in the record. And ultimately, if someone within 200 feet, we get to notice, so everyone within 200 feet of that property has automatic standing under the municipal land use law. If one of them disagrees, they can challenge the approval in court, and all the stuff that you said, your neighbor said, and all the testimony of every experts and the residents and everyone else is all part of the record that the court only decides if it gets built or not. But I think an important distinction to make is between what they have control over is redevelopment areas and things that they can negotiate. When you heard the CFO talk about pilots before and those kind of projects, versus someone who has a private property interest goes before the land use board. And the reason that they can't say anything is because under the ordinances here in town, if someone within that 200 feet before you get to court, they're the board of appeal for what happens at the board of adjustment. So if someone within that 200 feet before they can file a lawsuit has to appeal to the next superior body. In some towns it's a planning and zoning officer or a board, and in this town it happens to be the council. So for them to say something, I think that's a great idea at that site, or that's a bad idea at that site, all that does is make it easier for the developer to develop it, because say they get turned down by the zoning board or they appeal to the council, and the council's already on record basically biased about the project, when they go to court, it puts the borough in a terrible position. So that's why every time someone comes up and talks about development that's before the land use board, you see me over here going like this to all them, because if they say something, it can actually hurt the ability to control it beyond the land use board or in court.
Now, is there a restriction of height of buildings commercial buildings on Main Street?
In the zoning ordinance, there is a restriction in every zone for height. And so what you can do is...
Is it limited to 3 stories in town?
It's 3.5 stories for a lot of the commercial area. Some areas have the older 4-story restriction, but in general, think 3.5 or more.
Now, does this include the, a 3-story borough hall and a parking garage? I don't even agree with that either. Is that to do with...
Yeah, let me just say something about this, Rose. This building is old, it's falling apart. We need a new building, police department, administration building, gymnasium. So what you're telling me, what I'm hearing, is you would want the borough to build that at a cost of maybe $3 or $4 million and put the expense on all the taxpayers, and then this land wouldn't have any ratables because it's a public area. Or could we put out an RFP and find out if someone is willing to build us the police department, administration, and a gymnasium, and provide parking, and then we could get taxes from it. So this is a very valuable piece of land that is bringing in no taxes, but if we were to rebuild what we need, it will cost you and Larry a big increase in your taxes.
But see, I think we give up our right in our town by giving up to builders and developers and things like that. I think that they're controlling the town now.
No, I don't think they are.
See, I like the small town feel. I don't want to see big buildings. I mean, when I open that co-star and I see, and I'm like, oh, and it's my own fault. I haven't come here and said anything up until now.
Right.
So
You
it's
do
not-
realize there's less people living in Belmar today than in 1990.
Well, if we have these condos, there'll be more, and there's so much traffic, Brian, there's no place to park, there's no, and the people that are with the suggestions for the condos, if they need 50 parking spaces, they're providing 24, or they're, it's
Not
just.
anymore. No, that's done.
Okay, that's exactly the kind of stuff. So that's a good
Very
distinction. So
frustrating.
redevelopment of this building would be a council decision, and you saw them, table it for quite some time,
Right.
not too long ago, because of people like you who came here and said, I don't think it's a good idea. But on the other side, the developers in town, so someone owns a piece of property, but we all agree as a community, right? A 10 or 12-story building in Belmar is not a terribly good idea in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So your property rights, as you're under the Constitution, are inhibited by the zoning ordinances. So they put rules in place that keeps the town exactly what you're talking about, and then to exceed those, the only way to go past that, it's not their decision, it's a decision, and it shouldn't be their decision, to be quite honest with you, because that injects politics into it. So the rubric is set up so that you have people who are appointed to zoning boards and planning boards whose terms extend past the people who are up here. who make those kind of decisions for the community, and they have to be residents of the community and things that.
So we have to go to them and say, listen,
I don't think there should be a 60-story building here. Joe, I lived around the corner from you. Remember what it was like when we were kids? All that stuff goes into the record.
Sometimes I think the zoning thing doesn't consider
The
that.
competing interest is you have people who own property, so why shouldn't you be able to build whatever you want on your own property, right? In one sense. Versus the community needs to be planned where it doesn't work, or it just doesn't work for everybody. You can't have a 60-story building next to someone in a single-family home. And what is the rub? And ultimately, if it can't be decided here, at the zoning board or at the council and board of appeal, then a judge decides, because that's how we decide people's rights. And generally, when we all can't agree on them. So that's always the rub. But
Is the judge, or is the judge from the town, or is
no, they're freehold. They're appointed by the governor, ultimately. So the idea is you put all these processes in place so that the residents on those boards make the decision about what's appropriate for the town. Knowing that if they make a decision that's unfair to the property owner, or they don't allow, a slight variation, or it depends on the circumstance of the case, that they can be challenged in court, and then no one in the town decides. A judge decides what can be built, and some of those consequences can be seen elsewhere. So it's always a give and take, and the competing interest is I can do whatever I want with my property versus you can't build a 10-story building in front of my single-family home that has a view of the ocean. Right, and that's where the rubber meets the road. But your outlet is, in I would say 80 to 85% of these cases, because it's all private, non-redevelopment, non-negotiated with the council development. Pay attention to those zoning board ordinances. And if you get one of those notices in the mail, don't throw it in the junk mail. Call your neighbors and say, "Did you get one too? Let's all go down there and talk about what this neighborhood looked like."
Who gets the notices, though? Who gets the notices?
Everyone within 200 feet of any property that's developed. So I believe it's April. Do you draw the line?
Yeah.
So she'll take literally, now you're testing my 8th grade math. A compass, thank you. We did calculators, but the compass, and draws a 200-foot circle according to the scale of the map, and then writes down all the block and lots and sends a notice, certified mail, correct? Certified mail to everyone who is within that 200-foot circle. And then those people, if you get one of those notices, if you want to speak with the zoning board about how it affects your neighborhood, you got,
But if you're not in that 200 block notice, but you still want to know about the
Sure.
development.
It'll be on the agenda for the zoning board, which I assume is published online, and there is a public advertisement required as well in the newspaper, although most people really go to the website nowadays versus.
And Rose, I just let me point out that everybody on the council is a Belmar resident. Everybody on the zoning board is a Belmar resident. So they are neighbors that are going to be impacted on these decisions. In fact, there's 7 of them, and there's only 5 of us up here. So everyone on the zoning board is a resident of Belmar, affected by the ordinances, and they probably, because they've been on the board for so long, are more familiar with the zoning ordinances than we are. And they're going to listen to both sides of that night, and they'll come up. I am confident that the zoning board people will make a decision that's best for Belmar.
So if I could leave you with just 2 thoughts. The zoning board absolutely takes very seriously residents' input. Anybody who's lived through a 4-hour zoning board meeting can attest to that. They take it extremely seriously. And so what Mr. Cannon and Mayor McGovern are telling you, for these matters, that's the appropriate place for you to go. You're very welcome to be there. You don't need a notice, you don't need an invitation. Please go and express your voice.
I just don't always know when it's happening. Like, things happen and I see a lot being cleared and I'm like, oh my God,
Sure.
what's happening?
I understand.
And I'm embarrassed because I should know, but then I don't know where to go or where to.
Sure. And so just to make it very simple, because it is very complicated, and Greg and I get paid to try to understand this, but for our residents, if it's out of the redevelopment area, like buildings on 12th Avenue, your place to go is the zoning board. Okay, so there's a hearing, I think, next week. You're very welcome to attend. We encourage you to attend. The other thing I want you to take away with you is, I can assure you, and every single person up there wishes that they could express their opinion about some of these projects. But Mr. Cannon's very good at making sure that we're preserving the process and making it as fair as possible to everybody involved. So that's why they can't speak, but I know they wish they could.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other hands up, I make a motion to close the public portion of the meeting. Do I have a second?
All in favor?
Aye.